All right. Hello, everyone. This is Darcenovia here. I am sorry for delaying the stream. Last night, I was extremely exhausted because I had a long day at work. And I'm sorry for delaying it again. My computer was having issues and I wasn't at the house at the time. Now, before I get to the meat of the stream, I'd like to give a shout out um to one of my fans who's been watching me for a while. And I'll just give me a second. I'm just looking at some messages. Okay. I like to give a shout out to Corporal Cat, um, one of my fans. I hope you're watching this. I apologize for doing this extremely late, and I hope you enjoy the stream. Now I'm going to invite my guests on now and get this show on the road. This is about the Roe v. Wade decision that was made last week. I am still appalled that it happened, but I'm not shocked. I don't think any of us should be. But I'm going to get my guests on and so they can give their own takes on it because this is a issue that affects working class people not only in America but worldwide.
Hello, Poppet.
Yo,
Yo.
It's the anti-revisionist gang here once again talking about important issues that have the pet socks seething. I mean, we are really liked by these people. We're their biggest fans, aren't we?
I got a Keaton man spread. I got a whole calendar with just different things of him in like cowboy hats and southerner.
No clothes on.
I just keep it up.
Keaton has been losing his mind. Oh man.
Yeah.
Wait, no, so here's the thing to note about Keaton Mansfield. Like that cowboy hat he's wearing, it's a dressed hat. Like he's pretending to be a cowboy with some of the coastal people and like bourgeois people have used to be cowboys for centuries. It's a continuation of old bullshit.
Yeah.
Man.
All right. Hello, Stan. It's nice to have you here.
Hey, it's always good to have fucking I stand Kim Jong Un. He's a base. He's a
Hey, Raymond, and
respect, man.
hello to you,
Hey,
Black
M3W Justice Cadre, my G.
Yes, and
Hey,
hello as always, Net. It's good to have you on.
Respect that.
Respect.
Respect, Net.
Absolutely.
Oh, so what's your guys' general thoughts on this whole situation?
I mean, I think it's I mean, it's just like another fucking opportunity of the bourgeois to just deflect from fucking economic issues, but also try to tear people apart. Like I hate seeing I've been seeing a lot of stupid takes from like the Pat Sock crowd about like oh they don't want to be divisive or like stupid shit like that. But like if that's true and they really don't want to be divisive, then they would prefer Roe versus Wade to be in place because if it with it in place, like at least people that want or need to get an abortion can do that legally and safely. And if people don't want to do it, then they don't have to. But if you're purposefully like just like basically neutral on this issue, and you're essentially in favor of getting rid of Roe versus Wade, which is more divisive. That's literally the more divisive position.
yeah. So basically, I was preparing for this stream by watching a lot of Nazi World War II documentaries, and I think these Pat Socks would say back then with Kristallnacht, they'd say, I think it's divisive to take a position on Kristallnacht and the murdering and expelling of Jews from Germany. It's very divisive for the working class.
Yeah.
Every time I hear that, it shows you how little they respect the working class. Their intelligence and the ability to have any moral stances on anything.
Yeah, like there's like prominent fucking CPI members saying the most ridiculous fucking privileged fucking upper middle class white kid like fucking bullshit take where they're like, oh, these people can just easily fucking travel to the next state over and get an abortion.
Oh god.
Like, well, first of all, like not everybody has the time or money to fucking do that. In fact, a lot of the people that are most affected by this will not be. Like they
Right.
won't have that. And what's even worse too is I actually heard earlier today that not only is it disaffecting anyone for future abortions, but people that already had scheduled abortions now got their fucking appointments canceled. So
Correct.
like yeah, like people that were set to already have abortions like coming up are now like they're out of luck. They're basically forced to have these babies.
Yeah. And the one thing I'll add to this is like before Roe versus Wade was officially overturned, and before the leak, about like 6 or 7 months ago, Texas passed their like bounty hunter slash civil lawsuit, sue the women to the ground and all that crap against the doctors. And the
Yeah.
Supreme Court ignored the case. Basically that was like the green light for what happened last Friday. And those laws are still in place in places like Texas and Oklahoma. So it's not just that they're like banning it; they're like putting retroactive like punishments, both civil and on the criminal, bourgeois court system. And so like women can be in danger of like being sued. They're like drivers being sued and stuff like that. So this is like the barbaric of this like right wing crap that they're pushing, thanks to
That
six fascists with
that
robes.
in, that includes children that have been raped by like a family member or whatever. They get
Hmm.
that can happen to them too. And one thing that's really disgusting about this whole fucking shit, this is pretty much exposed just how much like certain sections of the American population don't give a fuck about children and how they see women and children as property.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
This is what this whole thing is. It's property relations.
Absolutely.
absolutely.
What was it? Was it Alabama or something I saw some crazy tweet that I think they even said like they're even including cases of like rape or incest. Like they're
Yeah,
not allowing abortion. I don't know if that was Alabama or like wow.
Uh,
Goodness
yeah, it's
gracious.
Alabama.
there's
It
even
sounds like
cases
Alabama.
where women could actually die if they don't get an abortion because of some freak thing that happened. Like
Yeah, and I think South Dakota is another state now that's
Yep.
on that like very extreme end, and
Yep.
yeah, and
I actually have a longtime comrade. I've been knowing her for about 10 years now. She's a very poor comrade. And she had just had an unfortunate night where she got drunk and hooked up with a guy, and he's a deadbeat. He bailed as soon as he found out she got pregnant. And this law passed, and or the Roe versus Wade thing was cut down, and South Dakota immediately fucking banned abortion. She doesn't
yeah,
have money to fucking go travel anywhere else.
It's
yeah.
fucking hippies
I
to
mean,
bail.
there's not. They don't even have an Amtrak train to South Dakota because I've seen the map. So that's how bad it is over there.
Yeah.
and well, I would like to discuss like how there's no nuance in this country regarding the abortion like issue because it's very complicated. It's more complex than people want to like say it is, but it's impossible in this country because you either are for abortions or against them. There's no like nuance to it. There's no middle ground to it. So those who would normally be pro-life would have no choice but to be pro-choice by principle.
The situation is, and I'll talk to this from. So in my 10th year of school, I learned about medicine through time. I did a double in it. And so medicine through time, one of the interesting things that they talk about is the history of abortion. So when abortion was illegal in the United Kingdom, the mortality rate surrounding pregnant women was ridiculously high. Like, you know, because if they tried to
Yeah.
get an abortion, they typically died too because of the unsanitary conditions. A lot of these things were done in the back end of streets, in alleys, by surgeons trying to make extra pocket. Um, it, you know, it's and then you got the whole quack industry as well surrounding it. But this issue is that um, pro life in the context of legislation and all that crap is only ever going to be pro death. It's all ever going to come up to. Like you kill both of them in that regard. You know, the sanitary conditions in a hospital is where it should be. And let's be honest, on principle, woman needs a right to her own body. And we got to understand how children are a tool for men to control women in this regard as well. I mean, Engels fucking on the family missed this part by a long shot. But the child is used as a way to fucking lock women down. I mean, a lot of men don't just run off from women. They'll run off from women and come back and run off and come back as they please and as they want because they think they can come in and out their life and abandon them with kids.
Yeah.
That's why, like, when I like, there's a rightful complaint when I talk about the fact that, like, you know, they don't have as much capacity to win a court case unless they're like really, really fucking doing better than the mother. Like you have to be doing economically better than the woman to really win. Like otherwise the woman's likely gonna win. And it's like, yeah, okay, sure that exists, but why does that exist? Because it makes it easier for men to escape. Makes it easier for them to just run away. It's hard for a woman to run away for her kids legally because
Yeah.
it's so much easier for men to get them uh, forced to have to commit to them if they tried to run away. Which I'm not saying like that shouldn't be the case. I'm saying that it's so much easier for them to do it. Well, with most blokes, they normally just have to pay like 30 fucking odd quid of Provident every 2 weeks just to put like a couple of shirts and a sandwich on the fucking kids' plate, and then they get to go fuck off and do their own thing.
Yeah.
That's why I thought it was pretty basic. My South Dakota comrade, she was like saying, you know, if they're gonna start forcing us to be mothers, they need to start forcing the guys to be fathers and actually be there, you know, help support the fucking
Right.
kid.
You know, what's ironic is these people who are pro life don't actually support anything to keep these children's like housed and fed.
Yeah, they don't give a shit.
Also, all the shit they say about it, they make abortion more traumatizing than it already has to be. Like, no shit, it's traumatizing. You're not the person losing the fucking kid. Like, even if you don't want it, it's still traumatizing. Like, that's a case in fact. But that's something they have to go through if they need to go through it. Like, you can't make it more traumatizing by making a fucking absolute shit show out of the situation and risking their lives in the process.
Yeah, and we're talking about like 26 states by the end of like 3 months or so. They're gonna have like a complete ban or other ban. Hardly any like, I mean, maybe like one state will have like 10 weeks, and that's about it. And that's a huge section, a huge land swath of America where, I mean, you have to travel to some like isolated, like liberal state, basically.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
always look at like the type of fucking policies that they try to enact to like quote unquote prevent pregnancies in the first place. Like their policies are an abject fucking failure. Like they promote like abstinence education over like sex ed and all that shit too, and then they don't even really promote like safe sex. And then now they're trying to. I think they already did get rid of it, or are they talking about getting rid of it? Like in the Supreme Court about married couples being able to use like contraceptives. Like what the fuck?
yeah, that was Clarence Thomas as usual. He's like telling the whole right wing to like challenge all these old
So
case laws.
so much for like no government interference in our lives. I don't want to fucking hear from conservatives ever again that they
Yeah,
support small government. I don't want to fucking hear it.
exactly.
Yeah, they don't, and they never did.
Yeah, I mean that facade has been out the window for years now, maybe like 10 years. Yeah,
Shit, even longer than that. And look at the fucking drug war.
Yeah, and I mean, look at these like pathetic neoliberal, neo-centrist Democrats. I mean, they're like raising money off of losing and they're telling people to just vote. Biden already said that he won't put more judges, and then he also said that he won't get rid of the filibuster, which is just like it's like a death smack. It's a wake up call to all these delusional sock dems and all of them, rad libs,
It's
etc.
is a thing to consider. Um, you know, no, we got to look at things societally speaking. Like we can't individualize the way that this goes on. I know we're not doing that, but just for my example, to make sure when I say home, I speak on a class perspective. Whom is most likely to cause a rape or an oppressive act towards people in such a violent manner that involves not just sexual act, but the deed of controlling someone for a child like that? It's going to come from someone who's petty bourgeois middle class. It's a class dominance thing. This is the victims of this type of act are typically lower class. I mean, like, look at the sex industry itself. The people who go to the sex industry and pay for all that shit normally are very upper class. Like,
Yeah, like I've heard from like some fucking guy, man, the type of shit that I hear from some of these guys, and it does happen to be more like middle class dudes,
they're
or
all really sexually fucked up as well. Like if you spoke to a
yeah,
prostitute
Yeah,
about some of the shit they fucking asked to be done to them and do to the prostitute, and it's like, ugh.
yeah, they'll fucking tell me like I've even heard some shit like, oh well, this decision doesn't affect me, so I don't really have an opinion on it. It's like, dude, what do you mean it doesn't affect you? It absolutely does affect you. You have women in your fucking family.
right.
Yeah, but those women are protected because they're bourgeois or petty bourgeois or labor aristocrats. So like when you're in
Yeah,
those three sectors of society, they
or,
just
or
smile and
like
wave, smile and wave.
and these are the same type of people that are typically like MRA type of people, where it's like they'll talk about like alimony laws and shit like that, and like
Yeah,
marriage traps and all this. It's like, dude, if you're worried about all this shit and like having kids with like women that according to you like or don't deserve it or whatever however the hell they'll describe it, like women that cheat on them or whatever the fuck, like. Dude, like they're still like you definitely are gonna get affected by this in one way or another.
right. Yeah.
Like, what if you
The
just like have like a random hookup with a woman that I guess you don't have any long term plans with? Oh yeah, you're just gonna run off like a fucking idiot, like and just not take any responsibility.
Nah, it's gonna be planned marriages now.
Yeah, that's coming up. Like
Oh, I wouldn't be
yeah,
I mean,
shocked.
America already basically does that with the fucking
they
weird
really do.
shit that happens in
There's
the
still child marriages here. Like they think that
yeah.
the fucking Middle East is like old traditional barbaric type of shit, whatever the fuck with that. Like no, like we
That's
still have child
basically like
marriages here.
only Saudi Arabia and the Arab Emirates that are
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I
Oh, I
mean,
remember seeing
yeah,
fucking Caleb Moppin. Caleb Moppin called Saudi Arabia a Bedouin culture. Like, what the fuck?
Oh man.
Can he not do anything without being anti-Semitic?
No, I mean I mean no. You know what's very interesting since we're talking about Caleb? The Nazis had a similar view about abortions the as the Christian right does.
Well, I mean, so
absolutely.
like Caleb's Protestant, so he doesn't really give a shit. Like Protestants are where the capitalists picked up Greek humanism from because they brought it back. They were like, "Yo, this is great." I mean, Catholicism was already kind of nuanced on it and didn't really give a shit. So Protestantism was like, well, save some, lose some. And then you saw the rise of Victorian humanism under Protestant Britain. But the what's it? It's people in his org who are Catholics would be more into this. I mean, think about like Keaton Mansfield. He's calling it like, "Oh, why is the left complaining? It's giving
Oh
power back to
man.
local
Oh yeah.
democracy." I'm sorry, democracy? What
You,
democracy?
Yeah, for
you,
real.
What
Everyone was
America
dunking on him for that.
democracy?
I was like, "What democracy are you talking about? What the fuck?"
right,
What a
Majority of
Yeah,
the
listen
exactly.
up, man.
majority of the American population supports a woman's right to choose.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
the
even
interesting thing. This doesn't seem. I don't think the elites didn't really want Trump. They wanted Hillary back at that point. So it's like I wonder whether like this is just a backfire situation that's occurred because of fascism and the degradation
Uh,
of the American Empire. Because Britain had a lot of these weird setback periods. I mean, like we started flirting with like proto neo-colonialism in like the late 1800s.
Yeah, but the problem
But
is the
we didn't
problem.
move to it properly until like the 40s because you got the rise of reactionaries like Churchill, who did everything they could to
Yeah,
stop it. This seems like a similar case. Trump seems like the last breath of old America because new America has to come. That's why all the fascists want to pull, like whether they directly call it New America themselves, Black Shirts TV, but or whether they come up with a new name for it, fucking whatever the fuck they want to. Well, no, they don't. They come up with a new name. They just call it America because this. We're talking about Americans here. Did you expect creativity? You haven't been fucking watching the last 300 years with
yeah,
the.
but yeah, the problem is though is that the right knows that the left here is like complete garbage right now. I mean, that's just the reality, at least within like the political apparatus. And
I
I
mean, the
mean, yeah,
bourgeoisie that profit from the medical industry that costs money do not benefit from the outlawing of abortion. They have nothing to gain from doing this.
well,
yeah,
the question
And the
I have
bourgeoisie
is,
don't want to exclude women from the workplace anymore. They want to make as much profits of anyone who can work that's got the fucking um the skills to be in those positions of science, positions of education, positions of industry that still exists, the few little bits that do. You have those degrees, they want you in them positions. That's why they're all
yeah,
filled up.
I
Like
even
yeah,
we don't
I
have we don't have people out of work because there's lots of empty job spaces. Like
Yeah, I even said like before, like in the chat where I was like, Keaton Mansfield, like how far will this fucking clown go? Like I even said like this guy, he's gonna go up to the point where he's just gonna come out and say like he believes that women should be barefoot, and fucking pregnant in the kitchen, like washing dishes and making him a sandwich.
yeah.
Like,
I mean, he's already quoting the Iranian Khamenei guy and saying he basically called the pro-choice protesters satanic by quoting him. He said that, oh, this is what the Iranian Khamenei was referring to when he said America was great Satan, and somehow that's like, yeah. So he tried demonizing people like that. He's demonizing women. You know what he's doing, and he's like talking about like some like Freemason conspiracy or whatever. It's so bizarre.
oh, that like,
the
yeah,
Freemasons invented abortion to keep down the fucking Americans because they work with that one true enemy that Caleb was going on about in Satan at the Fountainhead.
Yeah,
Israel
yeah,
caused all of our problems, even though Israel's only existed for like 70 years, 80 years, and the US existed for
yeah, yeah.
300 years. Although they act like the US has existed for fucking 7,000 years and is as old as the Egyptian Empire.
you,
No,
you,
maybe like
you know what's
15,000 years, wouldn't it?
you know
Fuck.
what's really interesting though when you look at the people that are pro-life. Why is it these so-called pro-lifers? Why is it me, or this is also motivated by the fact that because I've seen a correlation between the Great Replacement with this movement.
So
Yeah,
yeah, so where it more coalesces is that these people are not so much saying it as explicitly as Europe did. Europe with the Great Replacement, I mean, still to this day, very explicit. We are very, very explicit about it and really racist with it. I mean, America got it from somewhere. Hey ho, these Americans are taking a different ground. They're going the opposite way. They're explaining it from the perspective of the white person feeling like they're being outmatched. They're playing the language Biden used, where he tried to say like, soon there will be more of them than there are us, like shit, like we gotta move with the
yeah,
times, like all that fucking crap. There'll be more Latin people than there'll be any of us, and all that fucking shit. They're
yeah,
thinking from that type of shit, manner, so they're afraid that they're gonna lose their white power. Those
yeah,
magical white powers given to us by the arch wizard Yakube. Um, the um, the what's it? The they are terrified that they're going to lose that white power, so they're constantly pushing that privilege. Like you got to think about it. Cowboys are a myth. They're a mythological character based off of cattlemen. Now, cattlemen existed more than just America. One thing America might want to learn. Um, two, like I've been told by natives this: the only people who can dress like cowboys are native land natives, because as I have one native comrade say, natives make the natives are the only people who make good cowboys. And so, throw it down as you want to throw it down. They were the ones who were genocided. They can fucking play it as they want to play it. And to be honest, they do look pretty cool in the outfit. So I will give them that. Thirdly, uh, white cattlemen. So uh, the way that we looked at chattel slaves was as cattle, oxen, to be specific. So when you hear about cattlemen, okay, it doesn't mean they're always moving cows. It doesn't, it's more than just cows. I mean, it's fucking slaves, and they're very intrinsic to how the slaves were moved into the South. That's why cowboys are very intrinsic to Southern frontier culture, because they were massively a part of that push to move as many slaves in the South so that they could construct and
Yeah,
build a crown basis there, because they couldn't survive. They didn't have the resources. It was the middle of a desert. How do you build in the middle of a desert with no resources? The resources had to get there. How did the resources get there? Because the white people weren't fucking carrying them. White people didn't
exactly.
build those train tracks.
Yeah, the far right in America is very sophisticated. They're doing all kinds of things to rebrand themselves and infiltrate. And even the pro-life movement is an example of that. I mean, the name itself is kind of that as well.
What I'm getting at is that so Keaton Mansfield is literally choosing to dress like a fucking slaver. Mason Steiner does too. They're dressing like slavers with this hokey
Yeah,
pokey American dream that they want to fucking live up to. The way that they got to do it is they got to find the way that America's always promoted it. They take the core part of what America is, the slaver cattleman, they turn him into the yeehaw cowboy, and they
yeah,
fucking make him the advertiser, the fucking thing. You know the goddamn fucking American accent like this. That's a later accent. That's not how they originally spoke. Americans were actually quite posh when they moved over, governor. That's how they spoke. That's literally how they fucking spoke.
I also think it's funny that like these people will pretend to be like in favor of like fighting for like right, self determination of the oppressed nations here, or like fight for any type of like rights or representation at all for like oppressed nations, and yet they're sitting here like glorifying this fucking decision when it affects people of color like more than it does white
yeah,
people, especially. Like, the last type of statistics I saw, there's like a huge disparity between, for instance, like black women compared to like black men available, and it's largely due to like mass incarceration. I don't hear Keaton Mansfield talking about, prison fucking reform like right now. Like he's not even taking that type of shit into account. Like,
right.
last I saw, there was like I think they said it was 81 or 80 something black men like to every 100 black women, and like for every like 2.5 black women, like there's one of them has one or more family members in prison. Like
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
it's
way more affected by this shit.
it's the way this also comes into as well the way that relationship oppression goes down,
Yeah,
because black women are heavily abused by white women, and what's it, mixed ethnicity relationships. You know, the we got to remember this: race is caste is class, and abortion is a class issue. They're always going to be affected the most. Like,
yeah.
and it cannot be taken away from that. Like, this is this. I think we should really just go back to how race used to be talked about. Race was a later addition to how we describe things. Race was something we come up with. It was like the 1700s or the 1800s. The term we used to call it caste. That was what we called it everywhere. It wasn't just like a system in India. We called our racial structural slave system, the caste system. Like that was the way that we described it. That's why in Britain for fucking centuries we called it half caste if you fucking had a mixed race relationship.
Yeah,
So people today will call you half caste as a racial slur if you like that. Not so much as not young folk, but you could still hear it. Like it's not a dead term.
Yeah, and like people, there's another thing too. It's like the fact that we even like live in a patriarchal society where like men are like more like pushed and like they're into specific fields of work, and women are discouraged or encouraged from joining some, and more encouraged to join others. And shit. Like a lot of the ones that women are pushed towards, like are lower paying in general. Like they're especially ostracized in like STEM fields, for instance, too. Like
They
they
obviously
got
just
like put
didn't
under.
fucking pull their bootstraps up far enough.
For real.
Oh, STEM's one of the worst. I mean, like America was the country that turned around. Was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and was like, "Oh, the Soviet Union's bad because it made women go into science."
That's so stupid, but
yeah,
not
Like, they had
shocking.
more women in science than they had men in science by the time of like the 80s. Like
yeah.
Poland, I think 65% of scientists were women.
Yeah, one of the things with this whole what's happening now is that like some Republicans are calling for trying to regulate or even ban stuff like the morning after pill, contraceptives, and all that.
Yeah,
So
this
that's
is literally an issue of trying to tie women down. It's a proper fucking because like if you were trying to stop so if you wanted to do things faithfully, you would at least stop people from conceiving. Like fuck me, like they're not killing people because they fucking spunked into a condom. Like fuck me, like you're really stretching the whole like oh it's a living fucking being thing. Like fucking every time you have
yeah,
a wet dream, is that a sin? Like you fucking like go to fucking like Heaven's Gates. It's like ah well mate, like you know
I'm
that natural thing that all fucking
I'm back.
humans do.
Oop,
Like, you're going to hell, mate.
fuck.
yeah,
Spunk in your sleep once, and you're fucking dead, mate.
yeah.
Satan's gonna have you for 1,000 years.
Yeah. You committed genocide by like doing that.
Test.
Yeah,
Test.
yeah. We can hear you.
There's
Yeah, yeah.
white people in
I'm
those
sorry. I'm
stacks
back.
that could be
Yeah, I'm
created.
back now because
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
yeah, like I was joking. Like I mean, fuck me. My parents were joking. Like, yeah, let's just go completely back. Like, let's just bring back slavery. Let's ban interracial marriage. Let's just ban
Oh, it's gonna become
contraception.
a
Let's
fucking
just yeah. Let's
soundbite.
just
I don't know if I would give the Supreme Court of fascist ideas.
Well, I
No,
mean, they
but
already have those ideas. They're already
Well,
push.
yeah,
Like,
I
didn't
mean,
you
like,
see the
yeah,
one
well,
from
so
the one?
yeah.
one,
Clarence Thomas. Yeah,
No, it was
well,
Corp. What's his name? The Texas senator. He basically said we need to
John
revisit
Corn.
Plessy v. Ferguson. Now that
Yeah,
was the court case that specifically enshrined segregation into U.S.
yeah,
federal law.
Yeah.
yeah. John Corn tweeted that out to like one of Obama's tweets, the quote retweet thing. Yeah, so like it was very specific aim tweet. Yep.
okay, but I mean, so like, this is like, so the petty bourgeoisie, they're the ones that really are going to really benefit from this in a class oppressive fashion because it is a great way for them to smash people down. Like the bourgeoisie do it too. I mean, sex trafficking industry, big profits to come from that. But in this situation, like we got to look to like the history of things that have gone mad on in America, and what was it like? God, how long ago? I think it was about 10 years ago. Um, there's a guy running for office, and like it was running for the Senate, I think. And he turned around and said that he wanted to kill Barack Obama. He sent an email to I think it was the FBI asking them if they wanted to help him assassinate Barack Obama. They know it's what they're good at. Of course, that obviously got him arrested, but you'll see where I'm going with this. He wanted to outlaw abortion. He wanted to eliminate age of consent and consent in
Gee.
general, but legalize rape. He said that explicitly.
What the
Legalize
fuck?
incest.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean
this guy
Alabama
was
is
a
already
fucking
doing it.
lunatic, so I understand why some people might have dismissed it. But he's just a reaction of the common labor, petty bourgeoisie. That's how that's how petty
Yeah,
bourgeoisie are. His mother would cover for him. She was a judge, and it was the reason why he got pardoned.
yeah. I mean, that's like some like radical fascist stuff there for sure. Um,
We gotta remember Mormonism is very important to fascism in America.
And what's worse too is that these fucking people that say that this type of shit is like identity politics, whatever. Like, oh, we need to focus on economic stuff. Like, they're apparently they're so stupid they have no idea. Like, they don't see the obviousness of how all this ties directly into economics in the first place.
right. Yeah, I mean, these like Pat Sox and Osballs and other opportunists. I mean, they're basically like doing like a tactical class reductionism, but while ignoring the class root of some of these problems we're having. Um, and it's just a pander to reactionaries, basically.
Yeah, for real.
I
Yeah,
don't
I
think
mean,
it's even a. I don't think it's even a pander to reactionaries. I think they are reactionaries. I think that this is what they want.
right,
With fucking
right,
Keaton Manspread,
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
saying
interestingly, to
like,
go back to my point earlier, like the young marriages in Saudi Arabia, that was inspired by the British. Like that comes from the modernization of the British monarchy. Like the Saudi Arabian monarchy is bit for bit based off the British monarchy.
yeah,
Right. And yeah, I mean, Kean Mansfield is just a piece of shit theocrat. I mean, there's nothing good about the guy, but he's second in command of CPI, so
No,
you
he's
know,
exactly. It's more than just theocracy because Hitler was just like this. It's not about theocracy. He doesn't give a shit about Catholicism. Like, well, if he
Yeah.
gave a shit about any of his religious principles, he wouldn't be fucking behaving like the fucking Vatican and Catholic churches of power, like the Roman Catholic churches of power. If he was a Catholic that was a socialist, he'd want to change the Catholic system and he would be very critical of it. Now, the what he is he's just a fascist. He's using the fact that he has ties to Catholicism and that there's a big Catholic base in America to push fascism, and the fact that
yeah,
America accepted Anglican Protestantism and Calvinism, and so both of those forms of Protestantism are fine with engaging with Catholics and working with them. So it creates this like Christian unity communion that can that can really easily fall and organize behind fascism. Normally one of the first
yeah.
groups, really.
Well, I mean, 5 of the 6 judges, well, 4 of the 5 judges were Catholic. Roberts is Catholic too, but he did a centrist thing on the ruling. He basically was like, "Oh, I support the 15-week ban, but I don't want to overthrow it." Over Roe versus Wade, but basically he supports what
Yeah.
limiting the
Dude,
rights, anyways.
it pisses me off too that like there's still this fucking absolute cope by like a lot of conservatives and like neo fucking liberals will they'll try to like talk about how like righteous and shit the fucking Supreme Court is,
Right,
how it's apparently non-political. It's like, dude, are you fucking serious right now? They're human
right,
fucking beings. Of course there's fucking political bias. Like, why the fuck
absolutely.
do they think that like each party wants to put justices in so bad that favor their fucking points of view?
Right. Yeah, I mean, we still have those like neoliberals and others pretending like the court is some kind of like neutral system or some bullshit. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
make checks and balances, guys.
I've even seen some fucking idiot fucking neoliberals try and cope and like try to put this back on like more like progressive minded people where they were like, this goes back to
Yeah.
2016 when you guys refused to vote for Hillary. Now look at all these
Oh
conservative
god.
judges.
The most powerful of the petty bourgeois in my country are still called lords. So I mean, fuck.
Yeah, I saw that shit. They're like blaming Susan Sarandon, the Green Party, and all that. Bernie. They're like, yeah, it's your fault for why this happened, and even though like Obama never codified it when he had
Yeah,
50
Corporal Cat put
senators.
it right.
Yeah,
Every
Corporal Cat.
every U.S. president could have, if they gave a shit, could have made made the like. Sorry, it could have what is that word I'm looking for? I'm sorry, I can't think of it.
Ratified.
Codified.
Yeah, it could have
Codified.
codified this into law as far back as 1973. Any
Yeah,
president could have done it if they had wished. They didn't do it because the
yeah,
Democrats don't give a shit any more than the Republicans are.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
even if it was in law, like so, America's so a constitutional thing is the only thing in America that's hard to budge. Laws can just be outdone by another law. Like,
Yeah.
in Britain, it's both. Like, our constitution and our laws can be changed very easily because
So
we just took on a constitution in the 20s because it made us look more democratic. Like, we don't want it. Well, I mean, the
Yeah,
even
people do, but the government doesn't. They don't want it.
even if they put it in the Constitution, I mean, they still can find ways around it too. I mean, technically, like, I mean, there's laws on the books. Um, uh, you know, everybody in theory can quote vote. We know that's not true. All they have
right.
to do is
Yeah,
Well,
slap the
okay,
word felon on you.
that
Yeah.
comes from the way that and so in bourgeois, and this comes also to like late semi-feudal Anglo-Saxon systems. If you become a criminal, you're no longer seen as a human. I mean,
yeah.
America,
You're an outlaw,
anyone who
basically.
hasn't got a permanent or temporary citizenship that's granted by the US, you're not seen as a human being according to American law. And when you go
Yeah,
into prison, you technically lose citizenship, so you're not seen as a human being. Like, fuck me. Considering this comes from Britain, it makes me wonder like how much the not being citizens and being subjects things goes in the eyes of the fucking British Times. But the dehumanizing mannerism of how America works in that fashion, it's not so much about so a bill is not equal to a law. A bill is a process that creates a law or a constitutional amendment. So making a bill doesn't therefore mean it is the same thing as making a law, because you would have to make a bill to change the constitution. Constitutions are changeable, including the American one. They just don't want to change it.
yeah. I mean, they're never gonna add women's rights in the Constitution. I mean, that's just let's be real. I mean, that's the reality. And I've even heard now that like even if the Democrats like supposedly won the houses again with more people, and they like try to pass some like federal law, I mean I heard that they could just go to the Supreme Court again and they'll like strike it down because of the previous case. So like the Democrats aren't even like promising that. They're just basically just saying, yeah, donate, vote, and maybe in like 50 years, well, I mean, let's face it. I mean,
It's like the
yeah.
Dengists of socialism. It's like, well, you know, maybe.
This country won't be here in 50 years. America will not
Yeah.
exist as we know
Yeah.
it.
And like half of America might be underwater in 50
In
years.
50 years, the world won't exist.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nuclear hellscape fallout. Here we
Yeah.
come.
Oh man, better get that lever armor ready, baby.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, in 50 years, fucking this country will have already destroyed itself through a civil war or a race war. I mean,
Exactly.
this.
Also, like to be that pedantic guy, it would be the fifth Civil War, not the second. There was four civil wars under Lincoln.
Yeah, and I mean the left in like the Democratic Party, they're like useless right now. They're beyond useless. I mean, at this point, they're more of an enemy in the sense that they're just they're just cooperating with petty bourgeois and the bourgeois. Um,
Shit, I wouldn't even call them the left.
Well,
The
right,
I
that's a
I
good
Nazis.
actually
point.
I think leftists need to use this experience to and need to get through their thick skulls. The petty bourgeoisie are not your friends.
Yeah,
They never will be.
yeah,
Well, I mean, if they eventually get proletarianized through the very long, arduous struggle, I mean,
Yeah, they would still probably they would. They would
maybe their kids will be good people.
oh yeah, the kids. Yeah, yeah. I was like, because like them themselves, like they would still have that petty bourgeois mindset and try to do everything they can to get back to their former position.
Yeah,
yeah,
like it's gonna take a long time for them to proletarianize. Like a lot of people think it's gonna be like a simple thing of like committing to our conditions. It's like, yeah, welcome to like stage one of 69. Nice.
Yeah, people think like to the people that think like class struggle is gonna end as soon as like socialism happens. Like no,
The petty
right.
people.
bourgeoisie,
Wheezes in Mao's criticism of Stalin.
the petty bourgeoisie will fight to the death to keep their position.
Oh,
They're
I
they're
find
the most they're the most violent of any of the classes under in this system.
I find Stalin quite annoying on this issue because in like all of his writings, like actual hard writings, he's like, yeah, no, class struggle's still going on. But then in speeches, he's like, basically turns around and says it's over. It's like, dude, they've stop lying.
Yeah,
You can't lie your way to truth. Anyone that thinks you can lie your way to truth is fucking full of shit. And like it, you know, in fucking all of my efforts to avoid having to tell people to go read things, they might want to read Lenin. Like, they all act like Lenin said that you got to beat around the bush. No, Lenin turned around and was like, you just got to tell them the shit that's not politically advantageous. I actually like the fact you're telling them the fucking truth. Like, simple fucking logic. Like, the people aren't like the petty bourgeoisie. They don't like to be fucking lied to feel good. That's not how we work down here. We're sick of being lied to. That's why people don't like voting.
yeah.
Yeah,
Lenin actually said like lying to like the masses about like about conditions like living conditions not getting temporarily worse like after like imperialism is overthrown is literally counter-revolutionary, and anybody who does so should not be part of the party.
Based
Agreed.
Lenin. And mind you, as well, he's not talking about like to the Europeans as alone here. He's speaking to the Russians. I think people don't misunderstand that Russia was not like just a poor backwater. Like that. That's to be honest, I find a colonial mindset. Russia was an underdeveloped, growing power. Like they were going to be a superpower. They were fucking equal to, if not somewhat ahead of America. They became an imperialist power 20 years before America did. Like, I mean, capitalism, imperialism, highest stage imperialism, 20 years before America was. America didn't become imperialist until 98.
Yeah, people seem to like not realize like Lenin did think that like Tsarist Russia was imperialist, but they kind of cope about that. It's like, so yeah, Tsarist Russia was imperialist, so and you think modern Russia is not imperialist? It's way
But
more
according to
imperialist than Tsarist Russia was.
And,
but
and
according
the reason
but
why I
according to
mentioned like he put it, so one thing I want to say though, the reason why I mentioned that he put it in the category of America as well, very importantly, and from my own analysis, I'd agree, is America was where Lenin centered that this is going to what's come next after the Anglo-Saxons. This whole like there's a hegemonic empire that's under all the other empires. It's not a new thing America brought. Lenin talked about that with the British. And he said that the next hegemon would be America, and then the EU would try and struggle against the hegemon as the old decaying empires, and then there would be rise from the next best developing capitalist country. Talking from what Engels' perspective, was on dialectical acceleration of the colonial structures of things. So it's very important to look at it like that. If Russia had not had the revolution, because Lenin's speaking from that perspective, Russia would have very easily have been the next capitalist power. I do believe he actually does talk about Russia having being like the most no, it's Stalin that talks about that. Stalin actually talks about how like the reason as well why Russia had such a quick, easy development is they were already going to be the next industrializing power. They just sped it up by 10 times. Like it took them, they did what would have took them 50 years in 10 years.
Yeah.
That's 5 times, but same difference.
I mean, just look at Russia on a map. It's gigantic. Look at the territory that it had control over, or
on that land, bro. You know, they only really industrialized the West properly because when Stalin died, they were like, ha, even development, lol, and stopped doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
there was a lot of land that was still like, I mean, fuck me. Could you imagine like a Russian empire and there's no Bolshevik revolution and they held on to Alaska or something like that?
Yeah.
You
So
fucking
the British were trying to make them a client empire, and they were trying to make China, the Republic of China, and previously the Ding Empire, a client empire, so that they could build land, fucking, you know, the land empire. That they were trying to do that before the Nazis were. I mean, the Romans tried to do it too. The Holy Roman Empire was actually working with the English Empire, because I believe this was before the British. No, it was just after the British come to exist. So it was the British Empire. They were working with the British Empire to do this as well. King George, the what's his fucking name?
Yeah. Like the Pat Sox, they wouldn't. I guarantee they wouldn't fucking even. They wouldn't allow Alaska to like separate and like become its own state. They would. You know, they wouldn't allow Hawaii to fucking separate and like do their own thing either. Like,
I can't believe that like there's communists who call themselves Marxist Leninists. They're like, oh, the righteous thing to do with Alaska would be to give it to Russia. What? Like, they really
Yeah.
think that like East Russia is Russia.
Yeah. And I mean,
They don't know what
some of these Pat
but
Sox, they argue for like annexing Canada now. So I mean,
oh jeez.
Canada is
yeah.
an anarchist country. What?
There's some guy that calls himself like Pan North American Comintern or whatever.
North
God.
that's the
American.
most.
Yeah, and that's
I
what they
don't. I
promote.
don't.
Is
I don't
Pan North America. Yeah.
think.
What was that?
They
Breaking
promote.
up. Oh, I
They
was talking
promote
about.
Pan North America.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, Dark
Maybe-
Snovia, what was that?
Novia.
Dark Snovia, you're cutting out. What was that?
I
Robocop.
think they want to be part of America. Canadians.
Oh, yeah, they definitely do. I know a couple of
Latency,
Canadian comrades.
I
StreamYard's helping. It's like slowing down your words.
said
Yeah.
I don't think Canadians want to be part of America.
Yeah.
I
don't
got
think so.
whiplash when it sped up again. Then
Yeah.
I have a Canadian comrade that says like he's pretty embarrassed.
I
that
said
Canada
I
is,
don't
like,
think
their own-
Canadians want to be part of America.
yeah, but they already are. They're their own America. They're the same thing. Actually,
Yeah.
it's not worse because they're also part of the British Empire.
We need to
You
make
hear
Canada
me?
and America. Yeah, we
Yeah,
can
we
hear
heard
you. It's barely, but you're breaking up.
Yeah, you're breaking up for the fourth time.
No, we need to make Canada and America non-existent.
Fucking California gets affected too much by that hole in the ozone layer. It's all those UV rays.
Yeah.
We lost Gengaros. Oh,
we lost Dark
Novia.
Snovia.
Oh,
We
we
now
did.
own the stream. We've cooed Sinovia. Finally, been a game the whole time.
Typical leftists. Just purging each other constantly.
Yeah, ultra
This is
left.
fucking, you know,
We're
what's it?
Jacobins now.
Yeah.
There's going to be the coup to stop the coup to stop the coup to stop the coup. That was like the Soviet Union in like the 50s and the 90s. Lol.
Yeah.
Oh God. So I would hope that we wouldn't be like that type of that type
Yeah.
of group.
Yeah, hopefully Dark Synovia comes back, but we'll keep everybody, on
mean,
the seat.
Is I wonder, is the stream even still going on his end?
Yeah,
It's-
well, StreamYard's
yeah.
a hosting platform. But
Oh,
the thing is, with the thing is though is the love first world MLs, and I don't just mean like dengists calling themselves MLs, like people who believe wholeheartedly that they're MLs and they're dogmatically supportive of everything that fell out of Lenin or Stalin's mouth. I mean, they
Yeah.
say that all about all the words in the books, but that's selective reading. They prefer the speeches, which is already an interesting choice. They're the type of people that would think that Khrushchev coming into power and the coup he did was like a powerful and strong move, and that he stopped the revisionist takedown of the Soviet Union. But they'll also be the same people who will condemn his reforms as revisionist and then betraying the Soviet people. Like they like the fact
Right.
that people come to power in coups. They're petty bourgeois. They're the ones who fucking do the coups. Like
Yeah.
not even just in like the
Yeah.
socialist context, they do the coups and all the time. Like every time capitalism stops fucking benefiting them, the petty bourgeois leaders of the military coup the fucking government of the capitalist system. Like they're just little shits to everyone. That's basically what Lenin said. He's like, "Yo, they're gonna hate the capitalists too. They got their own interests. They are bastards for everyone. Fuck them off."
Yeah.
There's a
Like
reason like
Yeah.
capitalists turned around and was like, "These Pinkerton bastards." So we said we had a different name for them over here, but those people that they were hiring to protect their because they weren't just strike breakers; they were hired as bodyguards for land. Well, petty bourgeois people know their history and they know they used to be feudal lords and aristocrats, and so they're like, want that power back. So obviously they're gonna use the guns that they've been given by the barely armed, maybe with like a hunting shotgun, bourgeoisie. They've got proper arms they've been given. Normally they're given like proper rifles to protect the yards of these bourgeois, if not a good fucking revolver. Well, these big bourgeois people are given all this power to protect the land from people that might want to try to steal it. Well, they're now going to use that weight over that bourgeois person to at least get paid a good deal, if not take that land for themselves. So they were like, okay, how do we deal with this issue? So, um, pretty bourgeois man by the name of Robert Peel, Sir Robert Peel, knighted. Um, he's the guy who restarted the Conservative Party, what was known as the Neoconservatives, 1830s, 1840s. He came up with this thing called the Peelers, the police. And that's literally just bit for bit the colonial garrison, bit for bit. And that's how they dealt with the fact that the petty bourgeoisie had massive ambitions that the bourgeoisie did not want to pay for anymore. So they got everyone in society to pay for it. And this is a really interesting intersection into a lot of these discussions. So healthcare, the bourgeoisie has like other than the big pharma, which is one fucking major industry, not the whole capitalist class. The capitalist class has nothing to gain from it, really. Like the medical industry having to be like this, they got to pay a lot of swaths of money to keep a lot of people into interested in their jobs because of good work insurance. 'Cause I'm not talking about your low end crappy work. I'm talking about like science jobs and shit like that. Like the main industry of the first world when it comes to actual work. Most of our people are middle class, so that's where the most job ethic is centered, and that's where healthcare is going to cost the most if you're having to pay for everyone's insurance. And trust me, middle class people mostly select jobs that pay off their insurance because they're all about trick ways to fucking have as much money to spend on junk, on joy items. Which they then try and say that's what poor people do, and then also try and be anti-natalism and fucking bastardize people who have kids. Um, you know,
Yeah, they have all types of crazy fucking beliefs. Like,
and and
what
they're
I want to
this.
continue, what I want to conclude on is that so the petty bourgeoisie, why they oppose it, is because they don't want to pay taxes so that people they see as less than fucking human, as third class citizens, get healthcare. They don't like paying for disability benefits. They don't like paying for unemployment benefits. They do not like paying for anything that helps people that suffer. This is literally how the Nazis rose to power. They were like, guys, we'll give you socialism. No, well, socialism for the middle class. We're not gonna. Don't worry, guys. We're gonna give you universal health care, but not for disabled people. The Nazis literally
Right.
did this shit where they were like, guys, we are gonna do stuff that's gonna cost taxes, but don't worry, the poorest of people won't get it. Bernie Sanders was doing this with his fucking plan. oh yeah, we'll give everyone healthcare, but we'll still make it a private industry that costs loads of money that will give low-end healthcare to poor people for free. You think middle class people are going to go for the free healthcare? No. Well, they're not going to improve it to make it good enough for like middle class people then, which means it's not going to be good enough for people.
Well, to be fair, I mean, it was Bernie's plan was a little more complex. Like Bernie's plan basically was like, it had like a weird way of like doing this. So basically, a lot of people were arguing that like in essence, like Bernie's plan kind of bans like private healthcare because like basically Bernie's plan was that anything that is not covered by the public healthcare plan could be covered by private healthcare, but if they can't cover the same thing, so like you can't have a private healthcare plan for something that's already covered with the public one. And the basically what was going on was that his healthcare plan was like it provided pretty much like a lot of shit, like even stuff that like a lot of other countries don't even have. That's what the bourgeoisie were like criticizing his plan for. That's why they were like praising people like fucking Warren and all those other idiots that were like supporting
Yeah,
like the public option shit that
yeah,
that did allow just
I'm
straight up
not
fucking
talking
private
about the
healthcare.
options. So you got to remember that he's not nationalizing the medical industry. Like socializing
Oh, I'm
healthcare is
not
not the
saying that.
same as nationalizing it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
Uh, but yeah, his plan would have banned like the basically most other private healthcare.
yeah,
So there's a loophole to this. What it would have been centered at, because I mean, we unfortunately it doesn't work like this anymore, but it used to be like this. With the way the NHS was, is that the NHS was the NHS, private healthcare was private healthcare. A public hospital couldn't do private work that was covered by the public. It's not like that anymore. It's very different today. What it would most likely end up being is private hospitals can do private hospital and private healthcare stuff, and public hospitals, other than unless it's not covered by public plans, will only do public healthcare shit because
Yeah.
there's always a loophole to this stuff, and Bernie will have to do that loophole because he's a slimy little git, a greasy, as Jason would call.
Yeah, I find it funny as fuck too that like during the 2020 like people like Pat talks we're gonna forget like they really do they like Tulsi Gabbard a lot. Like Tulsi Gabbard didn't even support Medicare for all. Like she supported like fucking private healthcare. Like she
yeah,
supported like the public option shit, which is
yeah,
basically a cope. Like they would just give like you already said, so like the public option shit would already like give like they would just give like shitty ass fucking healthcare to like poor people while like everyone else has like fucking better healthcare with like the private plans and shit. Because
Well,
like the
the
public
compliment
option
is
would be
they'll
like
just get what the
severely
NHS is
underfunded.
today.
Yeah, like the public option would be severely fucking underfunded. And all it would just like strengthen like the right wing arguments of like privatizing shit. Like that's the thing that a lot of these like neoliberal or like hidden neoliberal Democrats do is like
yeah,
they'll try to push like some milk toast policy that just gives basically like propaganda talking points to like the right wing.
right,
But the thing is, so Bernie pushes a policy that says one thing, but he supports the policy of Warren and fucking Biden and all them lot. Like that's his game. Like he doesn't care enough to push it all the way. Like he believes and wants things that are better than what he actually is willing to fight for.
right,
So as far as I see it, I think he knows that they're not going to accept what he pushes. So he's pushing it to get the best version of what they're selling. Like it's this hope of middle of the roadism. And I've always said this since becoming a communist: middle of the road will always lead to fascism. Like there's no middle road. There's only multiple roads. There's one, two, three, four. There's always multiple roads. In the term of fucking politics, when it comes to whether you're being a fucking left or right, there's two roads in that regard, and there's no middle ground between left and right. Like you're either left or right. There's centrism, like liberalism doesn't really try and commit to that, except for when fascism is brewing. Like they don't care about being center right or left. Like they don't give a shit, which means that they're right. They know it, and they just don't care. They don't want to get into that. They don't want to define that. They don't want to be pegged to it.
Yeah, and another thing about like the middle of the fucking road shit, like the Democratic Party openly says like they're proud of it too. Like they openly are proud of being a quote unquote open tent party, is
Yeah,
what they say. Like the open tent party, like they literally have fucking like pro life caucuses like within the Democratic Party, and like
yeah,
the fucking the Democratic like leadership, like they were recently literally supporting a fucking like a pro life Democrat, like a neoliberal against like some
yeah,
progressive.
yeah. It was some neoliberal, neocentrist up in Texas. Bernie also put an ad out or whatever for him or her. I forgot. And yeah, they endorsed a pro-life Democrat like last month. And they're not the only one. Joe Manchin is another one too. And he voted for two of the three Trump's judges. Um, he's the one who's blocking the filibuster and all that. So yeah, Joe Manchin from West Virginia, senator.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like Bernie, like he was like threatening, like to like have a I don't even know what to call it, like a talk very angrily towards them campaign or whatever the fuck. Uh,
Yeah,
And
to
then didn't
fucking
do
Joe
it.
Manchin, yeah, and then he didn't even fucking do it. He didn't go.
right. Yeah, yeah. I think
He
another
instead
one.
begged and pleaded on his knees. Actually, no,
Yeah,
even that would have been more than what he's doing. I'm giving him too much credit. He just joined them. He's like, oh, I'm going to quit halfway through because a guy who doesn't, well, shouldn't even know the results yet said he's won. Like, literally the night after the vote was cast. It's like, no. And he didn't even win the state. Like, the fucking Buttigieg, he's like, oh, yeah, I've won this state. We find out later after fucking Bernie dropped out. He didn't even win.
right.
And Bernie knew that. He didn't drop out because he was losing. He dropped out because he fucking got a deal. Let's be fucking real. Got offered a deal, and that's why he got a job in
Yep.
fucking Biden's cabinet.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
mean, Bernie's on the bus.
Bernie Sanders is the most effective fascist of the Democrat Party. And I do
I
like saying the
disagree.
word.
I'd say that's the new wave social democrats. Like I think Bernie's quite shit. He was their little sock. Well, sorry, let's be real. He was their little dick puppet, and fucking what's it? He went about and fucking um what's it? He went about and was sent out by the Democrats every time people got Riley. He came out at fucking March of Wall Street. He was there. Everyone had forgotten about him, fucking other than like the real like left fucking people. Like most people forgot about him. Like he rolls up as another geezer in 2016. He's like, oh, he sounds cool. I like what he's saying about healthcare. You know, in
You,
2011, Barack Obama. So this is during Walk on Wall Street. Like I called it March on Wall Street, made it sound so much more badass than what it was. Walk on Wall Street. Fucking, he was calling Bernie Sanders a great example of the Democrat Party and someone he has a lot of respect for.
Yeah, I remember that. It was in like, yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that seeing that shit. And another thing too is, interestingly enough, Kirsten Cinema, another one of the ones like Joe Manchin, who's like,
Right.
stifling like anything, like stopping the fucking all the votes and shit that the Democrats are just trying to pass. Interestingly enough, her in Arizona, I remember hearing about her like years ago, like almost nearly a decade ago at this point. Yeah, over a decade ago. Is she actually used to be a member of the CPUSA? If you guys didn't know.
Yeah. She used to.
Ah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. She used to protest like the Afghanistan war, like even earlier before that and all that. So I mean, she completely like sold out, or just turned into like a petty bourgeois centrist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy too. Like her positions just straight up flipped and went crazy. Like she was actually when Trump was in office, she was like I think she was the Democrat with like the most in the most agreement with Trump, and she was like being pushed as like some type of fucking like progressive. Actually, and it was disgusting. I remember her
Yeah.
fucking campaign in 2018. I voted against her. I voted against her and voted for some like I don't remember her name. Like I think it was Deidre Abboud, some
I
Justice
see.
Democrat who was a Muslim woman, and she had no chance of winning here in Arizona. But
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Arizona seems to be like a real seem to pick real winners for their Democrats. Arizona not sending their best.
yeah, for real.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Funny
it's an
thing too
interesting
is
thing to
that
look at the Nazis as well, though, in regards to a lot of this. So, like the Nazis, getting to my point earlier about how this is staggered with class. Petty
yeah,
bourgeois women actually got a lot of fucking power in a lot of cases in certain areas of society. They got a lot of accessibility. Like this is not well, it never used to be an unknown issue. I mean, the Nazis actually propagated this a lot. Like that's
Yeah.
when you hear about like a lot of women having like fucking like positions in the military. Most of those were in communications, and most of those were petty bourgeois and labor aristocrat women. Like the women who got jobs in Germany otherwise would be factory workers, and they didn't really care to flaunt that as like a great thing of Germany.
Well, they did start flaunting that towards like 43, because Goebbels gave a speech like praising he like praising German women and all this to like keep them like I don't know, and
Well, that's war effort. That's just the war effort in of itself.
yeah.
I'm saying it wasn't like the propaganda of the 30s where it's a part of like an actual propagation of what Nazi Germany itself entails. Like
hmm Yeah, I think
it would have
something
been
like
just like Europe where I mean post World War II it was a lot harder than post World War One, but they did the same thing anyway, where as soon as the war ended, they were like, you're not supposed to be here, and tried to be all like restrict one woman like because I mean like women didn't come into the job space because of World War One or World War Two. They just increased. I mean, if you actually look to the history of the 1800s, you'll find a lot of women working in factories, but like it's the
right,
respect of it and the capacity to be hired and actually have a stable pay. We still haven't managed to get equal pay down, but give it another 150 years maybe.
yeah.
right, and
Another,
Lol.
yeah,
The
another
world will
funny
end.
thing too, though, is fuck, what was that Caleb tweet where he was like, "I support like a woman's right to an abortion. However, like,
Oh
I,
my god.
Always,
yeah, he was like,
always
however,
good.
yeah,
Always
yeah,
good to start off your tweet with "I support XYZ." However,
No,
yeah." And
no,
he was like,
literally, no. He is that meme. Have you read enough of his books? Because I've read enough of his literature. Like, I haven't read, shit tons of it, but I've read enough where literally most of his statements are like, this thing, however. Like,
You
it's comedy gold.
you don't need to read you gotta understand everything Caleb Maupin says without ever touching any of his books, just by listening to him fucking speak or reading his tweets. You don't need to read any of his books.
yeah,
Um,
he said like some dumb fucking shit about like however like I know some Christians and Muslims and Jews and
right,
all this stuff that had like genocidal policies that against them, and I'm like, so, wait, we're talking about abortion here? Like, what does this got to do with that? Like, what do you mean by however? Like, if you're presenting this as a however statement, like you're saying like
you
here's the
gotta
counter
protect
argument
everyone of the black
to
race.
yeah, like here's the counter argument to allowing women to have abortions. Like, are you saying that like abortions are like a form of genocide, dude? Like, is
yeah,
this like
for
is this like is this
This
like
is
yeah,
a is
this
this
is
like a fucking?
contrarianism, also known as teenage Satanism, according to Caleb Maupin.
It sounded like a white genocide dog whistle.
According
yeah.
to
It
uh,
Caleb,
did.
It is. This
according
is what I mean. This is their like rather than the Great Replacement, it's like the Great Reduction. Um, Also, it's not WWE Corporal Cat. It's versus, not the Lawrence the Texas. It's just it's versus. Don't get caught up with the Americans. They got lost. Been
Yeah,
irking me. I always see like Roe v. Wade, and it makes my head fucking pop. I'm like, what? Versus is a very easy word to say. I don't know. WWE fucking just putting a V on the screen has just spun everyone out. I've had
Like,
my I've had my Street Fighter education.
yeah.
The
you
game,
know
not
Uh,
the
you know what's really a stupid asinine thing I've heard these pet socks say, Caleb especially, is like what people who support of like abortions are Malthusians.
Oh man.
Oh god.
Holy
Oh
shit.
god, no. Malthus was not like, okay, make people fucking have abortions. Like Malthus was, okay, we should work these miscreants in factories until they've all fucking outlived their usefulness. Like he was the guy who was like, yo, fucking, we're already working people who are like 12 and 14 in factories. Why don't we work people who are 7, 6 years old in factories too? Like Britain in the early 20th century had to turn around and put a law in place. So like, okay, if you're under the age of 12, you can't be in a workplace because like the mortality rate in the UK for kids under the age of 12 was ridiculous because we were ramming them into cotton factories,
Yeah.
Yeah.
cotton mills. Sorry.
Yeah, I've seen Caleb say, he said it was like 2 months ago or like a few days before the leak. He's like, oh, well, I support abortion, blah, blah, blah. But then he goes into like how Marxists support like more population growth and only Malthusians want like more abortion or something like that. Um,
What is he even
yeah,
talking about? By like, Marxists support more population growth. Like, it's more.
yeah,
It's more so that like, like the main thing that's like stifling like the whole like narrative that the world is overpopulated is more so like with our mode of production that we even have and like the mode of distribution that we're using. Like, it's not. It
right.
doesn't allow for more people to be born. Like, yeah, sure, but that's not like us saying like, yeah, we need to like have more people. We need to populate even more. Like, that's not what it is.
Yeah.
It we oh my god, caring about a woman's right to her own body, that's Malthusian according to these idiots.
Yeah, I wonder if when he was talking about like different religious groups being like subject to like genocidal policy or whatever, was he talking about like any of like the Chinese ones?
Um oh,
Oh
oh
no, clearly not.
no,
Yeah.
Oh
because
man, fucking
because
what's it? The not just the abortions, but also like the fucking abandonment of kids and fucking other fucking crazy shit that goes down. The massive care, the massive amount of people that are in care and adoption services and stuff like that. Because like, if you don't have a fucking son, it's seen as like it's seen as like a fucking horrible thing to do because it puts you in a class disadvantage because you can't get as much well-paying and decent work, especially if you're in the lowest of classes. If you ain't a bloke in China, you look at like an industrial place in China, like not even when I'm not because a lot of people are obscure and be like, oh well, some places are undeveloped. No, I'm about the industrialized places. You go there. Yeah, they got all the fancy pants, fucking modernized stuff that I'm saying here. For just to make sure I don't get strawmanned, and they say I'm saying that it's like fucking technologically the 1800s. No, fucking dick shafts. Another word for dengists. Um, the uh, uh, the material conditions though, the class relationship is Victorian Britain, fucking bit for bit. It is Roosevelt's America, bit for bit, electrification, Roosevelt's America. I'm on about his election in the 20s. Because I think people seem to forget that Roosevelt was fucking president for fucking two whole terms. Like, man, there was about, like, actually, wait, wasn't Roosevelt there before the term limits? Yeah, it was 4 terms. Sorry, 4 terms.
Yeah.
Yes.
Four
Yeah.
He
terms.
did the terms after he died.
Yeah, no, I thought I
Yeah.
was saying something wrong because when I was halfway through saying it because I remembered the American term limits. So I went to limit myself. I was like, wait a minute, no, it was like the 20s to 40,
His
45.
first election was at 32. I think in the 20s he was he governor of New York or he had some position in New York.
Yes,
Ah,
he
shit,
was
yeah, because that
governor.
was when he was writing the letter to them, to the capitalists, being like, yo, guys, could you not? Because obviously Wall Street's in New York. So I said,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found the
no,
Caleb
it's fine, isn't it?
tweet. I'll read it. It says, so this is like from June 6th or May 6th. I'll read it now. I am hearing leftists making crypto Malthusian arguments in defense of abortion. The capitalists want to outlaw abortion so they can have more people to have more labor to exploit byproducts, unquote from Caleb. And then he says,
Oh,
"What the fuck?" Then he says, "Economic growth is good. The biggest capitalists are Malthusians." Um, and so he's mocking the idea. He's attacking the idea. He's basically saying like anybody making that argument
What
about
class was Malthus?
right,
That's my first question. Like before he even goes on to say Malthusianism on a whole is a capitalist thing, what class did Malthus come from? Because you know what, we can say liberalism is on a whole a capitalist thing and a capitalist ideology because it comes from the bourgeoisie. Like not just like some of the like they are like maybe the feudal aristocracy was going along with it first and then the bourgeois. No. This was the bourgeois' big thing that they used to conquer the feudal aristocracy.
right,
Malthusianism is a petty bourgeois idea, and it's their idea of like, okay, how do we make a paradise out of capitalism? That's what it is. And their logic
right,
is build post scarcity, kill the poor. That's their logic.
yeah,
Capitalists just like making profits. They don't want to make paradise for everyone. They don't give a shit. They don't care. They have their fancy fucking dinners. They make their big numbers on their spreadsheets. And so long as big line goes up and stays in the green, they're happy
yeah,
fucking chappy. That's why they basically tell the petty bourgeois to do your own thing and get fucked for ages, other than like the top sectors. And then, like, in times of dire stress, they're like, shit, here's a load of money, go spend it on something. They will fucking beat their fucking they will beat the drums of the petty bourgeois and their ideologies, sure, but that doesn't make it theirs. Like the bourgeoisie don't all of a sudden become that. Fascism is a good example of this. Fascism is not bourgeois; it's petty bourgeois. The
right.
bourgeoisie go along with it, yeah, but they want to go back to liberalism as soon as possible. Why neoliberalism arose out of fucking social democracy? Like people
Well, I
need to
mean,
remember that neoliberalism took corporate elements from fascism, not because neoliberalism is fascism. It's just because neoliberalism is liberalism. Maybe people should look up the history of liberalism before they get confused.
yeah, but we're dealing with people. I mean, I saw a new infrared. He calls himself like Infra Henry. He's got
Oh,
like,
Oh God.
yeah, and he like he's arguing that U.S. imperialism isn't based on what did he say? It's not based on profit anymore. And that it's like really based only on debit and all this, and there's no more commodity money. I mean, this is the type of thing we're dealing with these fucking like fascist pat socks. So yeah,
when he's saying that, like our imperialism is like based on like debt, is he talking about like people owing debt to us or us owing debt to other people? Like,
I mean, he tried to bring up usury and
jeez. I mean,
Like
don't we
isn't
have
it
like a negative balance with like China? Like
isn't it
they
yeah,
interesting?
can default on debt.
Isn't it interesting how turfs are nowhere to be seen regarding Roe v. Wade?
right. That's interesting.
They're too busy bullying trans feminists.
Well, what's actually interesting about turfs, which all these movements are connected. Like, the thing we you gotta know about fascists, they all agree on everything. Well, not everything. To some degree, they have a a similar goal, and and the trans people have been warning for years this shit was coming, that they'll go after reproductive rights if we don't stand up to, if cis people don't stand for trans rights. And look what happened. Surprise to no one who's been paying attention. They they all but killed Roe v. Wade. Now women have no rights now. Children essentially are treated like property. But then again, children have always been treated like property and under capitalism. They're not looked at as people.
Yeah, I've literally heard like people that were defending like the whole like "don't say gay" bill and shit. That like the parents have
Caleb
absolute
defended it.
authority. Yeah, he did. Yeah, like, I don't remember his stupid reasoning why, but like the basically the person that I was like talking to, like their reasoning was like, oh yeah, like parents have the absolute fucking authority over anything that involves their children. It's like, really?
Jeez.
Do you think children don't have the right to their like privacy at all?
They think they don't think for themselves. It's like, um,
Right.
it's this is like something I had to explain to my own mother because like she used to like air off all her shit to me growing up, and I had to explain to her when I was older. I'm like, Mom, you gotta understand, kids from like the age of like 5, 6, they're very independent. Like they that's when the brain starts to reach the point where it's like doesn't rely on the parents to give them advice for everything. Like they look at the world and try and see themselves in it in the same way people do in general. That's why it's very intrinsic that you teach your kids and treat them with the same respect you would treat anyone. If anything, more so. So give them to a point that they can understand the world for what it is, not for some bullshit that flies about. But you know, this uh this understanding of like the way that they look at people, um, it's looking at them like property. They they don't want to see things like trans rights come forward because the struggle of trans rights and shit like that puts greater capacity of question into the cultural norms of society that still keep women as property. You know, think about how we describe beauty, for example. Beauty is something that makes like it's an object things where it's centered around how certain things appeal to certain satisfactions. It's based on this barrier of lust. It's objectificated to a poignance of you can physically buy it. You buy the makeup. You buy the nice clothes. You go and fucking can go to clubs and buy yourself fucking literal people, whether legally or illegally. There's different avenues for these things that both exist, and so this is a confines that is normalized to our society. And what Caleb Maupin said about "Don't Say the Gay," Caleb Maupin said that that he said that finally classrooms won't be instilling like shit into kids.
Yeah.
Like
He
he
said,
was pushing the transgenderism shit at the CPGBML.
I think he said trans ideology or whatever. That was
Trans
how.
ideology. I don't remember. So I know a lot of trans fucking communists. Well, I say by a lot. I know six, but to white cis people, that's a lot. So you know, like um, fucking I am going to do the I have X thing friends meme, but what I'm getting at here is that fucking I don't remember any of them saying that they have a trans ideology. I remember them being communists. I remember there also being trans people that are fascists. I know that there are trans people that might also be liberals, although given their struggles, that probably seems rarer amongst them than it does other people. Um, so it's like, no, you. What the fuck? Trans ideology? Like, okay, Mr. fucking Christo fascist ideology.
Bro. I've also seen a bullshit fucking narrative. Like I actually think like, I haven't seen it too often, but when it's like a little like a sneaky little shitty fucking like talking point that a lot of right wingers will use. They'll say like LGBTQ couples make more money than like heterosexual couples, but if you actually break it down based on like men versus women, like women couples make less than like the other couples.
Yeah, like a lesbian couple makes the least out of anyone, and then trans couples make the least because they don't get hired, and then they a lot of the time it's illegal, if not most of the time. So
Yeah.
that's actually why a lot of fucking. So I've noticed that trans, like petty bourgeois and labor aristocrats, are more inclined to be supportive of, like, I'm not about communists. I'm more inclined to support the lumpen than like you fucking like anyone else in those class positions, other than like colonized peoples, of course. But I'm just speaking in the realms of like white petty bourgeois. Um, And I mean, to be honest, that intersects into the colonial thing anyway, because I mean, it kind of talks about like how like uh, this gets into the intersection between the disabled and the colonized. Like I was speaking with a trans comrade about this, where they have a very similar thing that we have with them, where it's eugenics that ties their struggles together in this, but also the fact that there are trans people who are colonized, just like there are disabled people who are colonized. So like you got to think about like if you're the trans person who's also disabled and colonized, you get like the eugenics fucking triple cheeseburger. Like you're triple fucked. Good luck. That but this is where it really comes into it's like these people are that's the most arduous people you'll ever come across. So when it comes to people who are ready to commit class suicide, it's the disabled, it's people who are trans and people who are colonized. And the reason why trans people are so pushed this isn't just because of that common experience. They are so isolated in a way that alienates them from the or like it alienates them like to the sideways of the front direction of alienation that's gone for the so you think about it this way. What I'm trying to say is that like alienation has already gone in one direction for the labor aristocracy and petty bourgeoisie. Well, then trans people and LGBT people and colonized people, disabled people, especially people who are mentally and cognitively, neurologically, psychologically disabled, those people are like then alienated in the fucking horizontal direction from it. And so like this issue causes like them to be quite susceptible to class suicide and wanting to support the struggles of the lower classes.
Yeah, absolutely. And see, like, it's this type of like more in-depth analysis that like a lot of the fucking padstocks just never even bother to take into account. Like they'll just they'll, like swipe this shit aside, and I don't think it's a reason a lot of times. Some people will think like, oh, they're just like new leftists that are ignorant. Like, no, I think they know this. You know, there's a reason why they're specifically ignoring this type of analysis. There's a reason why they separate themselves from other like leftists, and they're so hostile towards like the leftists and shit in general. Like they're talking about like popular fronts with libertarians who look how the libertarians are responding to this Roe versus Wade thing in the first place. Like,
Yeah, libertarians don't like this shit because libertarians are typically quite like socially left. They're just economically right. Like that's like they've always so libertarians for like about 80 odd years have been supportive of like LGBT stuff. They were the first right wingers to go gay.
yeah. I mean, on the question of abortion, they're kind of split, it seems, but yeah.
Well, the
Well, I
ones
mean,
that's
so half of them are just outright fascists. So I mean, they're split on a
Yeah.
lot of issues.
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
I
yeah,
think it's
especially
with libertarians is some of them are there because they're just lost as well. Like that's the thing that I've noticed, and I have some really interesting political discussions with those people.
You okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bing bong.
I was just taking a cereal break. You're
Yeah.
trying to sell me a skateboard out there. I'm like, I don't skateboard.
You on the tram?
Okay. Can you go ahead and ring those up for me on the side?
Apparently, Noob's a skateboarder.
Sorry, I just had to disable that.
okay.
For now-
Also,
for now.
Net is completely correct to say that the trans struggle is a majority lumpen struggle, and that's why, like, when you see the like trans middle class problems that come up, like while there are trans people who do commit to that petty bourgeois ideation, like pseudo LGBT shit, where it's not even actually supportive of the LGBT properly, but they're not the masters of that. They don't lead that struggle. That counter struggle against the LGBT struggle, which masks itself as the LGBT struggle, because we are long in doublethink. George Jackson has already said this. Fascism, everyone's saying it to come. It's already here. As soon as we started massively like jumping to 1984 shit, interestingly in the fucking 70s and the 80s, fucking very, very accurate title for that joke. The doublethink that spurred out of that era, that's the building of what we've got today. Like neoliberalism had a very short time of liberalism and basically has been struggling to exist since the 90s because fascism like turned around and was like, yeah, we just ended fascism, like social democracy, but same difference. Like fucking I can't be asked soft pattering it. I'm just gonna call it fascism. We just ended fascism, but we kind of need it back again, guys. The economy's crashing. This whole end of history thing, no, not working out. The liberals too, ideative towards that. But so cis women are the people who dominate the petty bourgeois pseudo LGBT shit that's going on. Cis women, they'll turn around and try and gatekeep what it means to be trans. They don't support trans men. They only support a most over sexualized and over feminized form of what could be described as a trans woman when cis women aren't even like this. And it actually has turned out to become very damaging towards cis women because now these sexist and transphobic men call any woman who has any sense of feature that could be seen as quote masculine end quote, which that's a fucking vague definitive when you really think about it. Um, they're then seen as like a trans person in disguise. I'm sorry, but half of these people, if not all of them, couldn't fucking they seriously couldn't spot a difference between a trans person if they fucking tried and a normal person because they just don't know how fucking people work. Like these people have sat in front of a computer screen their entire life and just throw insults at everyone that they fucking come across. This is a supremacal move. They don't give a shit about the actual fucking livelihoods of other people. These people are the same people who turn around and say what happens inside a man's house, it's his castle.
For
They're
real,
like,
they really
what
fucking would.
hair do
These
they
are,
get behind someone's closed door? Sorry, I talked over you.
these are the same type of people. Like if a homeless person comes up and asks them for money, they'll say like, "Get the fuck away from me!" Like,
They think that like, oh yeah, poor people shouldn't have money because they'll just do drugs, but then at the same time, like they don't care what people do if they're doing it in their own time, but oh, it's off someone else's money. But it's like, no, it's their money once you've given it. They're the
yeah,
same people that if you gift them something and you want it back,
I was
and
about to
then
say like,
they'll
look
say,
at when.
well, you give it me, you can't take it back. Rightfully so, but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like look at how every single time Hawes ever talks about homeless people, he'll always like mention drugs. Like he'll talk about like fucking used needles all over the floor and shit. Like he literally thinks that they're just a bunch of fucking drug addicts that like are just useless like to society. That's literally all he thinks about like homeless people. Like he would literally like throw them in a fucking prison if he could.
That's how
Yeah.
that's how the people at my employees at my work look at homeless people. Like I'm not joking. At least like once a shift, like I'm supposed to patrol the fucking wine section for because that's the section where people have robbed the most. It's like I don't care. If I honestly if there was a person that stole it and I saw it happen, I would just turn the other way. Who
And
cares?
I
Let them
would.
also,
do it.
something I want to get onto as well. So, Net, when he says, like, he's actually on a really important point here. The Orthodox Jewish people and traditional Muslims are pushed against the LGBTQ plus because, you know, like, I mean, on principle, in my opinion, personally, on principle, they would not be against it if they knew the full truth of the matter. But I know this from my engagements with brothers and sisters, actually are from West Asia. That all they see is this shit pushed by the petty bourgeoisie that makes them think that they think that trans people are this weird fucking like sex cult crap because that's the way it gets pushed across. Like that idea doesn't just come from like the way that right wing people gaslight trans people. It comes from the way that this fucking petty bourgeois thing has set them up. They set it up to be about that, but it never was about that. It's all just about being themselves, like being people. But they can't even do that because when trans people want to speak about their own issues and speak to what they are, they're shouted down. And it's all made about the way that the way that the toxic masculine society wants them to be, which is something that can be pleasurable. That's the way they want it to be. Like they want it to be something that could be sexualized and sold to men because it's therefore as well. It's not just that it's something that's then for there and allowed. It's something that's profitable. It's an extra market. Oh, you've not just got women and the homosexual market. Now you've got trans people that you could sell to them. And I mean, that's why anyone who knows anything about the porn industry will know that it's mostly been trans women which don't even get typically respected as trans women, they get called. I do apologize for the slur, but they get called she-males.
Yeah,
Um,
Jesus.
yeah, I know. Trans men have only really started to crop up in the porn industry in the last 5, 6 years, and I'm probably given a longer margin than actually what it's been, but really recently.
Yeah, it's also pretty interesting too that a lot of the quote unquote or she male whatever fucking porn shit like it's pretty interesting that it seems like a lot of their fan base seems to be people from the far right.
Oh yeah, like 70 odd % of the viewers of trans women porn is um uh white men in America.
Yeah,
Like I think like chicks with dicks is one of the most common things searched in America because I remember Russell Howard doing a thing on it.
yeah. Oh man.
That's another reason why I oppose the existence of porn. I think porn is a disease that does nothing but um, dehumanize the people in there, and it's a form of sexual slavery.
Yeah, I mean, like, what's it like? I mean, this is coming into like the law of value shit again. Like, it's like fucking. They obviously know this and are fucking doing it disingenuously because there's no way anyone who's picked up even a fucking page of Marxism and trust me, these people read the shit because they want to be against it. Fascists are our most intelligent and ideologically powerful enemies that we got to face. They know that like what they're doing is just completely imbecilic to uh, anyone who has an understanding of the law of value in society. So it's like we're obviously saying that no, it's not like nude imagery or fucking someone being interested in doing something like that ain't gonna exist. Of course, it's gonna exist. People are funky people. We're kind of like fucking well, I mean, interestingly, like the fucking apes we descend from, but also like dogs and other animals like that. Well, we just kind of fuck about a bit. I mean, dogs might be not the best example because in some cases it's a bit of a dominance thing, but a lot of animals have been a bit gay. Let's just put it that way. Like a lot of
Every
animals,
every
pretty
cat I've
gay.
ever owned, every cat I've ever owned has been gay. I'll just say that.
I mean,
I
male cats are like the most fucking like lovey-dovey of like the two, but they also fucking if you don't get them snipped, they just piss up everything.
Yeah.
Like
two
fuck.
two of my dogs were lesbians.
Oh
Um,
shit.
Female dogs are so like they are the so fucking obedient. Like in like the most like like not in like the sense of like you're having to command them or tell them or anything like you ask them to fucking heel no lead and they're by your side and just walk with you like my female staffy that we had when I was growing up. She was a fucking well interestingly it was her name but she was a fucking angel. um and she the only time she was a problem is if a male staffy tried sorry male staffy a male dog tried to do anything with her because she was a powerful bitch to use the language to my advantage. Like she didn't like having anyone fucking try and do anything over her. Actually, when the male staffy that we had who was older than her, they tried anything on with her, she'd have him and she shoved the bone down his throat at one point. Uh, my dad had to reach in and pull the bone out of.
Damn. Yeah, like it's like on like the porn topic thing. Like it's pretty crazy to me that like especially to anybody like who because it always seems like it's the people who are most obsessed with like fucking pedophilia and like just all that type of crazy shit is like the right wingers that but that they are also strangely like fanatical about fucking capitalism. Like this is literally the system that encourages this type of shit. Like there's a market, there's a literally a market for it. So like there's that's why like we have like fucking child abductions and shit all the time like that, and they're sold into the sex industry. And they make a
Yeah,
fucking illegal ass fucking child porn videos.
and they don't want to get caught on to the fact that they're the ones doing it mostly.
Yeah. And on top of that too, it's like they know that like the abortion thing, like banning abortions is gonna like mostly affect like working class women and shit like that.
mean, how
Like,
often do fucking petty bourgeois people accidentally have a child? And if they do, how much does it affect them?
yeah. Like a lot of times, like they'll just be happy about it. Like that's the thing too. It's like if it's like a surprise pregnancy in like a petty bourgeois family, it's usually like a rather happy moment. Shit, you know.
Or
It's
if
like,
the petty
oh, it's
bourgeoisie
a
do
happy
that much
pregnancy.
cocaine, they barely are able to fucking conceive a child. It's a miracle, if anything.
Yeah. Like it's a whole different thing if you're like a working class family and like you find out there's like a surprise abortion. It's like, holy shit! Like, are we gonna have like the necessities to even like take care of this child? Like that doesn't really come across like the minds of like the petty bourgeois and like the bourgeoisie. Like,
And we know that they're all about the overpopulation thing anyway. Like, that's a petty bourgeois fear that the world's overpopulated. Capitalists don't give a shit. They're like, yeah, well, fuck it. Like, people suffering makes further for people who aren't suffering to shut up and stay in line. So so
yeah,
what? You know, if the petty bourgeoisie push them off using stuff, we don't care either, because if the population goes down, it'll go up again. Like, the capitalists see things from a very like broad scale. That's why they need the petty bourgeoisie in times of crisis to look at things in the more here and now. Like, people think that they're very here and now, the capitalists, but no, they're broad. That's why they don't like to change. They like to be the same because they think of like, okay, I want capitalism, but I want capitalism forever. That's the capitalist mindset. They're very Roman. They're very like, this empire will be the empire of empires, and that's why they see the toss of the hat. Like, this way, like, there's imperialist games going on between the powers. They know that they chucked the hat to the US. The British tried to keep the hat in their court. Like, this is a game. They know that the hat's going to be thrown about. Like, no one was in their fucking right mind thinking that China and Russia were not imperial powers. Like, when they were, literally part of the fucking G9, which is now the G7, but no, sorry, G8. That's now the G7. I forget China's fucking still part of it. Um,
yeah. And another thing too is like a lot of these people that are like against like they're in favor of like fucking banning abortion, all this shit. Like they're literally probably just like banking on like them, like them not being able to be supported and end up being on the fucking street so they could be like fucking sex, fucking like child prostitutes and shit. And it's the same thing with like for like LGBT comrades, where like a lot of times like once their parents or whatever find out that they're fucking LGBT, like sometimes they're fucking kicked out onto the streets anyway. Like a lot of the people out on the streets are LGBT. Like, and then they're just exploited, or they're basically forced because they have no choice to like fucking get into that shit.
the backbone of the anarchists in Phoenix and Glendale and other places like that of Arizona, the backbone of those anarchists that I've been helping out with giving voice to, and Falcone's done a great job with helping out, giving voice to, especially on the trans issues. The backbone of them is trans people thrown out by their families, trans people trafficked by fascists. I mean, the sex ring of that area of America, especially, but I mean, these sex rings, the international. That this is a global issue.
Yeah, it
Um,
really fucking is.
Oh,
Like
but didn't
being
you?
this is the thing
funded
too. It's
from
like
trans people. They sorry, funded by the trafficking of trans people.
disgusting
Um,
shit too is that these motherfucking right wingers will literally sit here and defend the fucking billionaires, but while it's an absolute known fucking fact, and it's like common not it's like commonplace here that people know that this stuff is going on, but they don't really care about it. They don't talk about it very often. There's like these billionaires are going around the fucking world on fucking sex tours, like having sex with a bunch of fucking kids all around the fucking world, and the colonized
And,
world.
and
Okay, some of them me
oftentimes
and
it's the
Net spoke to as well about Arizona is that like the petty bourgeoisie of Arizona know all the shit that's going down, really. Like, not everything, but they, in the sense of knowing everything, I mean they know that the police are fucked. They know that there's fucking nasty right wing tendencies going by, but they either A, support it, or B, are related to someone who supports it, and either know enough of how dangerous it is to not like what they support, or don't
or
are not bothered by what they support. So they just pretend like it doesn't exist. And they'll
or
act
or
completely like what you're going on about when it comes to like Arizona or Texas or those types of states of America where they are fascist little fucking twilight zones. They
um
they pretend like it don't exist. That's where you get people like
Or
Keaton Mansfield being like, "Whoa, but do you not look at the like fucking good side of this shit? There's no good side to this shit. What good side to America's fascist outcry because it's decaying and the petty bourgeoisie want all the benefits they can get from the dying empire so they can keep it on this. Sorry, they want to keep the empire on its table so they can keep all of its fucking massive benefits they get from the empire. I know how to get my words the right way around. Fuck you, autism.
well,
Yeah.
oftentimes the people that are producing a lot of this underground child murder, CP and other stuff,
Jesus.
and is people like Peter Scully, who is like petty bourgeois. Like these people, it's like obviously it's not the bourgeoisie who are the ones producing a lot of this stuff. It has to be the petty bourgeoisie doing it, and then they sell it to the bourgeoisie.
Yeah. I mean, the bourgeoisie, they don't even have to just like watch it through a screen. They could just fucking pay for it and get it in real life, like when they go on these fucking sex tours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the petty bourgeoisie are the people who sell these people to the bourgeoisie. A
Yeah.
lot of them, the lumpen petty bourgeoisie as well, that do this. Like, I mean, this is the thing that I get into. Like, the lumpen aristocracy does not intersect with much with the with the labor aristocracy. I mean, they do, but not as much as the petty bourgeoisie intersects with the lumpen petty bourgeoisie. I mean, think about the police. The police are like, yeah, I mean, like in the leadership, mostly petty bourgeois, and then obviously you've got labor aristocrats in the more working class job. But even some of the, I mean, like the way Arizona's escalating pay,
Yeah, Jesus
it's
fuck.
just petty bourgeois. But their petty bourgeois, the actual infrastructure itself is petty bourgeois, and there are petty bourgeois infrastructural unit that's used to court and work with the lumpen petty bourgeoisie to sort of court the lumpen proletariat and lumpen aristocracy and keep any ambitions of those two down. Because the biggest problem that they have with those two is it's very hard to separate the lumpen aristocracy from the conditions of the lumpen proletariat. Because even lumpen aristocrats who earn bare p, which means a lot of money for those that don't know, those who earn bare p, that is those people still end up living like in really shit conditions or sometimes are homeless, like fucking my brother's technically homeless. Like he's in a hostel, I think, at the moment. I can't remember. He keeps switching between being at like a hostel and at a mate's place. So like I can't remember which one he's at half the time. But he's homeless by any fucking one's definition. He hasn't got his own place.
Yeah.
He earns a hell of a lot more money than me because he's lumpen aristocrat. Mandem's fucking what's it? Sweating his brow out, selling the Mary Jane.
Yeah, and like for the people on the stream who don't know, I've been ranting and raving about it in like our fucking group chat for the past couple of weeks. Is in Arizona, they recently announced a pay increase for starting recruits in the police force, a raise of $20,000 from $56,000 starting salary to $76,000 to start, which is insane.
Whoa.
And they coped so hard in the fucking article. I remember that I read that from too. It was like a local, like a credible, like Arizona news source. And they were coping so hard by saying like, oh yeah, this was introduced as a means to attract more quality police officers. Like, really? Of all the things you could have done to apparently want to attract more quality police officers, the thing you do is raise their fucking pay. That's it. All you're gonna do is attract more of the same crazy motherfuckers that are already there, harassing and beating the shit out of everybody.
I was trying to search for an emoji, but I just typed the thing that I was searching for. Oh well, that worked.
Well, I wanted to say this earlier. This shouldn't be a controversial thing to say, but I'll say it. Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself. I think anyone who, with half a brain, will find his death very suspicious.
Whoa, come on, man! Are you telling me that the paper shirts that have been scientifically designed to fucking, like, not do the killy? Like, you would have thought they'd have at least been like, oh, he shoved it like in his mouth and in his nose and like suffocated himself to death or something, or like he pissed on it first, so it was full of ammonia. Like he dehydrated himself and he pissed on it, or he starved to death. Like they could have at least tried to make it fucking believable. Like it's almost like they see, this is the thing. Conspiracy is useful, so I feel like they wanted people to think that something went wrong here and someone did something, because then everyone can point blame to someone. It allows any group to use it to hopscotch and push their shit.
Yeah, yeah. It's like they could have at least blamed it on somebody like a lower staff person or something like that. But come on, like the idea that the cameras was off and oh yes, he clearly wasn't being monitored. Oops, and
No,
he
no, I'm not
clearly
about like
somehow.
blame it on lower staff. I'm saying like make it believable. Like they didn't make it believable. Like just in general, like they didn't try
It's
and cover it
it's
up
not
properly.
well, it's not believable that he could kill himself. I mean, I know for a fact that if you're in a prison and you're being monitored, there is a 0% chance you will die. You can kill yourself. Like that's
I
just a
mean, you
fact.
call the guards fucking honkies enough. I got confused with the statementation. I'm a bit fucking broken at the moment.
Looks like my biggest fan was in the chat and he's gone.
I mean,
What'd he say?
It has nothing to do with class, but I don't engage with fascists.
oh, fair enough. Was it some fucking LGBT and sorry, anti-LGBT
It was Boroman once again.
the Chronicles of Borman, a more like boring Moran.
If anyone
Not
wants to
like
know who he is,
boring. Sorry.
just type his debate with like forgot something Avalon and you'll see some funny shit.
Oh, you're on about Hunter Avalon?
Yeah, just
What
watch
the
his
fuck?
debate. Just watch his debate
Is
with him.
Hunter Avalon like an even more fucking cursed version of Chris Avalon?
Well, okay, just look it up when you have a chance. It's funny shit. The only reason I bring
I try and avoid watching cancer. I already have to cover like Caleb Moppin, and that's fucking already giving me brain rot. Like,
I hate to break this to you, but you want America is essentially a world where the Nazis won World War II. America is Nazi Germany.
well, I mean, like we make the joke in Europe that like the EU is like the Germans basically just getting what they wanted anyway.
Like, it wasn't Hunter Avalon one of the fucking. He was like defending like the fucking FBI or some shit, or the CIA or some shit. Like, he was like
The
defending the
hallmark of any
CIA.
good CPUSA member.
Well, let's just say Borman is a huge fan. Was a huge fan of him, and he went on his show to debate him.
Oh,
I'm not.
Fucking, it's like how like Caleb brought Culture Thug on to debate, not to disprove fascism and dismantle fascism and show people that fascism is bad. No, he actually responded to it. It's like, well, I wanted to bring you on here so I could show everyone that I'm not a fascist. We're very different. And Culture Thug was like, oh, that's what you want to do. Oh, thanks for telling me that. I'm gonna go on a point where I turn around and tell you how we're not very different, you and I. Like Culture Thug literally just waited until like I was like halfway through the stream where he turns around and is like, well, we're not really too different. Like, on this. Like, Culture Thug loves China. Like, seriously, look at the cultured conversations on China. From
yeah, I
the
kind of remember
New
that. I don't
Frontier
even. Is that
Network.
even? Is it still even on YouTube? Like, I remember seeing it, and I remember like Caleb trying to be really performative and combative, but like Culture Thug was like just like calm, relaxed, and like trying and like showing the how like he's not that different from Caleb at all.
Yeah,
That's
like
funny.
so
It's
it's
culture.
on. And he has like so is the interesting title of it. Fascist is in quotation marks, not like so you don't need to put something in quotation marks if you also believe it. Like like it's not just that Culture Thug has quote called himself a fascist end quote. Like it's that he is a fascist and you agree with that, surely. But Caleb in the video turns around and like speaks in a way it was on something he was questioning him about like Culture Thug's own criticisms of fascism, and I can't remember the specific words used, so I will not make a straw man in this situation, but Caleb speaks to a situation so he speaks in a manner where he's like trying to like nudge towards Culture Thug that he if he was willing to say he wasn't a fascist, he wouldn't see him so. Like it's utopian socialism shit that they use for people like fucking Joseph Smith. Yes, Caleb Maupin thinks Joseph Smith was a fucking utopian socialist. People who don't know who Joseph Smith is want to go learn who he is. He's very important to American fascism.
You know what's
Jeez.
actually funny? If anything, his debate with Cultured Thug just proved even more that Caleb is a fascist. Like he didn't
Guys,
push back
I know.
really against any of his points.
Yeah, Caleb came off looking like a fucking idiot in that debate because like
But
he was trying everything in his power to try to be combative and shit, but he didn't really know how to argue against Cultured Thug because Cultured Thug was just basically agreeing with everything that he said, but like adding like context to it. It was really weird.
Kim Jong Un's got it right. No president 2024.
I agree. I agree completely.
Premier and commissar and shit like that. Time now, baby.
Yeah. Or we'll get Jimmy Dore 2024.
Oh god, fucking Caleb Maupin when he's old enough, because he's still not reached the big boy shoes of being allowed to run for parliament.
Actually, Caleb will be able to run for president, but in
What?
2024.
Nah. I think he's got longer than that. He's only 10 years older than me.
Caleb Maupin's around my age. He could I could run.
He's early 30s. He's like 33. So he's still not old enough yet.
He's almost there.
He
He's
will be by
close, like
2024.
not
Yeah, by
to run for
2024, yeah, he
2024.
should be.
He won't be old enough to run for 2024. He'll be old enough for the term, but he won't be old enough to run.
Yeah.
No, you got to be. He's like 45. Yeah, no, 40 or 45. Like he won't even be old enough.
Actually, you have to be 35 at the
Is it
youngest to
35
be
at least
president.
40?
Yeah,
It's
35.
35.
Is it 35?
Yep.
Yeah, nah, he'll just be old. He'll just be old enough for like the year. So like maybe, but the running starts in 23. So like maybe.
Yeah. Not sure how that works. Like,
God damn!
probably because like
how many fucking accounts does this fucker have? Jesus.
I guess to be fair, you can sign into a presidential race during it, so you probably can actually.
I would someone
There are
someone in my
late startups. There are people who come in late, and it's like, oh well.
I mean, they're
So
not
may-
very strict with this shit anyway. Like they always say, like, you know, you can't run for president if you aren't a natural born citizen. But Ted Cruz ran for president. He's not a natural born citizen.
I mean,
You-
as
you-
well, like they say that like you're out the race, but you can still be voted for anyway. So it's like, okay, what's that?
And to be fair, I think McCain was born in the Panama Canal territory. There was some ruling or something that was like they didn't have citizen rights or I can't even fucking remember. Back when it was a colony in the Panama Canal territory when the U.S. stole that. So yeah,
Colony that would still classify him as a U.S. citizen. The U.S. is a settler colonial state, so it's no less illegitimate for them to be a citizen of America in Panama than it is to be a citizen of America in fucking New York.
yeah.
All the same bullshit. White people being like, oh, this is our land. This is our land. That's why they so uncreatively were like, okay, this is America. This is America. This is America. Like, there's no country called America. There's the United States. There's Canada. There's Mexico. It's all a fucking shitly named America. The Spanish, the English, the French, known for their creativity, I imagine. So much evidence with the American continent.
I've actually heard some bad socks fucking praise Teddy Roosevelt for fucking doing the Panama Canal. I'm like, dude, are you fucking serious?
Guys, if Theodore, the guy who called himself a fiscal conservative, is a good guy lefty, then obviously Teddy, the guy who was also a fiscal conservative, was also a good guy lefty. It's not like he comes from the fucking party of Andrew Jackson that was started by Andrew Jackson. You know, the guys who supported segregation, the guys who who created the Confederacy to fight against the Republicans. Like The Republicans were not the Confederates. Fucking get that out, you stupid fucking Yankee brains. That's fucking step one for the petty bourgeois of America. The Republicans were the Union. That was their shtick. Like the fucking Democrats or the Whigs, um, they were the fucking the Democrats were the fucking slavers.
Yeah, yeah, and the only and it was and the Republicans was so it was also yes, the Southern Democrats were the party of slavery. It gets a bit more complicated when you go up north because the Republican Party was a merger of some Northern Democrats, the Liberty Party,
It was wigs
dis,
too, right?
yeah, disaffected Whigs. Yes, more or less, you are correct. That yes, but things were much more based around sectarianism or states back in the day. I think were much more region divided.
Surprisingly enough, there was more Democrats in the South that voted for the Civil Rights Act than there were Republicans in the South that voted for it.
I mean, this is
Hey,
because,
party
well,
of
like lumpen proletarian sisters, they already can't afford abortion in America anyway. It's already too expensive.
yeah. Why is abortion is not cost free? It's like fucking what?
I mean, this, and also, Chaya, this is literally like the whole like, Stalin said Hitler was gay and that gay is bad, so don't be gay. And it's like, uh,
Okay,
like a
I
lot of these
gotta.
people just attribute it to Stalin, which is like, okay, not really the full case of the situation. B, I don't give a shit if fucking Lenin fell from the heavens and said, "Yo, don't be gay," because I'd be like, "No, you," and send him fucking back. Like, literally, like, do they think these Marxists think that like because someone said it or someone wrote it, it's like fucking history's gone now. That is historically material, so it's therefore material. No, that's not how historical materialism works at all. Historical materialism is innately anti-vulgar materialism because we literally can't be with history. We lost so much of it, and we lose so much of it because we humans are crappy chroniclers. Let's just put it that way. We're crappy chroniclers. I mean, we did a good job for a long time, but especially in the capitalist period, we've become a bit shit because like we everything's been centered around not harvesting knowledge for knowledge's sake. It's been harvesting knowledge to weigh it over people's heads. Why won't we give it back? Why do we hold the knowledge of the world in the first world? I mean, think about it. Like, not the knowledge of like experience of reality. We literally hold museum pieces of like codexes that are tens of thousands of years old and other shit like that that belong to them people. Like when I say knowledge of the world, I mean like history, shit that might not even be important now, but culturally it's important. You just hold it because it's all about us latching onto these things as a position of power.
I had a fucking pat sock in the comment section for Jason's Roe v. Wade video, and guess what this fucking idiot said? Well, abortion was illegal in some socialist countries. Therefore, um, he didn't even like they didn't even like put like what does this mean? And my comment is basically like, yeah, so Joseph Stalin also supported the creation of Israel, and then later backtracked and realized just how much of a horrible mistake it was. Therefore, I should support Israel today, right? Like these people are just like,
That
no,
they
you.
they're fucking brain worms. That's what I say.
Fucking Yeonmi Park is good evidence as to why abortion should exist.
Actually, Yummy Park is an example of the sexualization of and how little men value, at least in the petty bourgeoisie, value women because of the unrealistic beauty standards.
I mean, to be honest, she looks like someone who does a hell of a lot of cocaine. That's all I see when I see Yeonmi Park. I see a coke addict.
I think it's starting to make sense why a lot of these idiot Patsucks will call themselves Stalinists now. Like they'll absolutely reject everything economically that Stalin had to say, like everything else, like strategically Stalin had to say, and they'll just like take on a lot of his like shitty socially conservative views that he had with his fucking Russian Orthodox Church fucking upbringing.
It's yeah, the guy was a fucking Christian, like church minister guy who went to education to be that, like, and then decided to be working class because he picked up Marxism in his last year of doing it. Like, he made a decision to go for a factory job instead of becoming a minister.
Yeah, they'll conveniently leave out all the years that he was literally fucking robbing banks to like fund the Bolsheviks and shit. And, like,
Oh yeah, robbing trains, and he literally turned around and was like, writing people like for the newspaper in Georgia because I mean, so Stalin was doing a lot of shit before even like shit like this before even the Bolsheviks. So Stalin was like the leader of the Georgian communists. I can't remember what they called themselves. Um, and so Lenin approached Stalin because Lenin had heard about Stalin's heroic efforts leading this maritime band of rebels, and he was one of the most notorious communist names in secessionist Georgia during fucking the late 1800s and early 1900s. Because I'm talking 1890s here. Um, and so Lenin approached Stalin. They had a pretty good relationship going on after that. Actually, that's why Lenin wrote stuff of concern about like his humorous tendencies and his nature to be crass, because otherwise Stalin was a sound comrade. But Stalin embraces a great fucking part of my kind of like doomer mentality towards thing where it's like in the face of stress, he's going to crack jokes that most people are going to get pissed with because they're stressed about the situation, but it's his way of dealing with the stress. Because that's the way I can see that where Lenin's criticisms are coming from, because it's like Stalin seems to be doing it at the most inappropriate of moments, and I got in a lot of trouble in my time for doing shit like that.
and another base as fuck thing about Stalin too, like during this like period, like before like the success of the revolution and shit, is Stalin was like he was constantly being like sent from labor camp to labor camp because the Tsarist government was afraid of basically afraid of him because he kept on like radicalizing and like teaching Marxism to like all the other fucking prisoners that were around there. So like they had to keep on transferring him all over the fucking place because he kept on doing that.
All right, Stalin, you gotta cut all this whole Marxism thing out. We're gonna send you in the middle of nowhere, so you won't even have any other prisoners around you except this one other communist guy you're gonna be with, and you get to teach Marxism to bears now.
Yeah.
Actually, Stalin gave the Jew blast entirely to the Jewish people to control. It was people like Khrushchev and later Soviet leaders that wanted to take away that power from the Oblast. They just that the Oblast was a Jewish nation for them to have their control. The Soviets had no power over it. They were just the military that defended it.
Yeah, great Russian chauvinism and during the Brezhnev period especially was fucking horrible. Jesus.
Oh, you had so during the later period where Deng took power in China as well, you had Soviet Union and China both trying to bully the Jewish Oblast. So people forget about this time period because everyone wants to just talk about like fucking well, they don't even want to talk about it. Everyone wants to just dismiss the Sino-Soviet split as just a thing of like that's the one thing, and that they want to say the Soviets are right or take the middle of the road. It's like really China was right. Like anyone in their right mind would know that. I mean, it's not even like it's a crass thing for an ML to take because Mao was an ML. Like a fucking groundbreaking things to MLs to find out that Mao Zedong thought is Mao's thoughts applied in practice. That's all it means. Stop thinking it's Maoism. Stop thinking it's Marxism, Leninism. No, it's just whatever he's applying and it was Marxism Leninism for the most part, but it also was its later revisionist platform as well, which wasn't really but the Sino-Soviet split is that one situation, but then you also have like social imperialism. So like China was trying to be social imperialist by the Soviet Union. When China became social imperialist, China and the Soviet Union were just combating it out with each other and trying to social imperialize countries. The US and the UK exploited the fuck out of this.
Yeah, and on top of that too is basically as soon as fucking Deng came in as well, like they did exactly what Mao had warned about like for years about like the danger of Han chauvinism. Like Deng just brought that shit right back.
And interestingly, the US basically took on the Soviet Union for grooming them into an ally power, and the UK took on China.
Yeah.
Actually, Margaret Thatcher was very, very intrinsic to China and UK building up a relationship.
I find
So
it funny too that like a lot of the bad songs will basically reject the fact that a lot of these socialist countries like greatly expanded the rights of women, especially like China.
You want to know another
but
thing that I can't help but get over? The Soviet Union, even when it banned abortion for 20 years, re-legalized it in the 50s. And both instances, it was before the United States.
Yeah.
So even
literally.
even in revisionist countries, women have more rights than they do in like capitalist countries.
I've said it
Yeah.
before and I've said it again. Roe v. Wade only existed. It was only allowed to happen because of the Cold War. The socialist, the existence of the socialist bloc existing. The second it disappeared, a few decades later, all those rights out the freaking window with that.
Yeah. And also like just in general like the fucking austerity policies that became rampant after that period.
So, uh, foot binding is returned to China, um, and you know, the areas that are most industrialized and having massive population influxes, they're very heavily centered around having male kids. Otherwise, they throw their kids into care if that's the nicest thing they're doing. Trust me, there's the all the way to the worst of kids being killed. Like it's not an easy situation here we're talking about, and it's hard to tread this ground because I don't want to talk about this issue too crassly because it's horrible shit for the Chinese people to have to go through, and the uh, um, um, fair play, noob, man. Hopefully, stop playing soon and you get your own respect. Chill and relax, and things calm down. It's probably all the stress from all this shit. My little brother, he gets nosebleeds when he gets stressed. Um, what's it? What was I saying?
China, men,
Oh,
women,
so yeah,
birth.
so China, they skin bleaching has returned to China. And whiteness in China is a thing that people don't seem to take account for. Like they seem to think that whiteness is like a Western exclusive behavior. Like, do they not know the history of China? Like the colonialism? Like this fucking China has been colonial longer than fucking like a lot of nations in Europe have. Like they were around when the Roman Empire were around. Like, and you think about it, like China has got a long history of this shit. As the Japanese, they know they were colonized by the Chinese. I mean, that's where like the Japanese, the white people of Japan come from. They come from China. The indigenous of Japan are massively oppressed and massively genocided in most areas.
Yeah, yeah. Because like there's large deserts in China, and there's a real skin tone difference between somebody who is of Chinese born and raised in a desert culture versus one born on like the coastal areas. I know this for a fact because my father worked in construction all his life, um, and he has a skin tone that is a lot darker than a lot of other white people, honestly. Even though, like, you can look at my skin and I look as pale as a ghost, pretty much.
I mean, for me, it's always been kind of hit or miss how the fuck people are gonna treat me. Because some people just see me as like a straight up fucking Mexican. Other people see me as like white, surprisingly. So until they like look at my mustache more closely and like my fucking color of my eyes and hair and shit, like I don't know. Like it's hit or miss on how people will treat me. Like if people, for the people that think I'm more Hispanic looking, like if I'm talking to a white person, they will kind of speak with like a type of class supremacy type of shit.
See,
Yeah,
the native comrades that I interact with, when they know anyone that they come across that they find out, especially if they're a fucking comrade, that they got like any heritage from that regard, their main respect then is to try and introduce them to what the culture is of the native of Turtle Island, because there are loads of individual native nations, yes, but they had a common relationship with each other. They all kind of knew who each other were. Like it's sort of like it's. I think people don't understand how long fucking you know the thousands and thousands of years are. But they should imagine like how like closely related North Africa, West Asia, and Europe have been for like the last 15, 20, maybe. Well, I mean, to be fair, hundreds of thousands of years, but we don't have that much written history. So we'll just say like basically all of our written history. So like as long as that written history, there's enough history to say that Native Americans have been about that long, or natives to Turtle Island and all that. So because I think what anthropologists have theorized, it was like the last great ice age they got into America from Asia. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe just like it's even more possible that like hominid development happened in the exact same way in America, creating Homo sapiens again. But I swear there's like proof that they have like common ancestry to people from like there's no old world, new world. Like we're all in the common ancestry, but like of Africa, um, the common ancestry of Africa. But what's it? There's like footprints that are like 10, 12,000 years old of in like Central America. So like there's so much evidence that like they've had a good, strong, cohesive relationship for a long time, because you don't live that long without going through wars, going through battles, going through unification, separations, empire. We all know about that. Spanish certainly fucking know about the empires. Heck, people don't seem to recognize the fact that they were constructed cities with buildings. Like fucking everyone's going on about how they're all living in like stick huts and shit. No, 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 no. They were like cities and stuff. Like, and even if they were living in stick huts, fair play on them. Fuck me. Like, it don't matter what stage of development people are in. They're going the way that they need to be. They don't need to be any better because that people don't find the necessity to do so. Seriously, good on them. They're doing what they feel by their people. They'll reach the point of development, or they'll reach that way. If you believe in the way that society develops, if you believe that like the necessity for these developments is a necessity, that will become self-evident to any society. There's literally the principle of right of self-determination. Like Lenin himself, I hate the fact he uses the term backwards so much in imperialism and state capitalism because that makes the book like it just gives like one shit stain on this like really fucking good piece of work. Like it's not backwards, mess. Like you can't turn around and preach right self determination and just call them all backwards. Like fucking hell. Like edgy petty bourgeois moment. Like you know, class to side. It's not an instantaneous thing. Lenin's a good example of it. He's a very good anti petty bourgeois guy. Even he was a Ponzi aristocrat at times.
Yeah, and um, yeah, there was huge marvel at like they were marvelized when they saw like these gigantic cities and there was they had um they had calendars that could precisely like go over for like thousands of years mathematical calendars and other such things that were nowhere near precise to what the Europeans had, along with like very precisely cut stone what do you call it? Basically like Legos pretty much that they could like insert things into, and it would be like the beginnings of like what do you call it uh, 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 technological works like that.
England is a beach. There's no escaping it. England is a bitch. England is a bitch.
Yeah, there's a bunch of fucking things in the Bible too for the fucking super fucking religious people, whatever, that literally like has abortions in the fucking Bible. Shit's crazy.
Yeah, but
The Bible gets gay sometimes as well.
It does. Like it literally like justifies abortion for like if the wife is like cheating or whatever, like it's not the husband's child, like it literally like supports and pretty much forces an abortion at that point.
You know,
I mean, the Bible also doesn't support the creation of Israel. It very specifically says that Israel should not exist. I forget what passage it's there somewhere, but
Well, I mean, Zion has no place. Zion, so the Jews themselves already talk about this. Like Zion has no place. Zion is where the Jewish diaspora goes. Like that, you know, it's the fucking it's not paradise in the sense of heaven. It's like the think about it. It's more like this. It's more like the sanctium that they make out of the struggle they have to deal with and where they have to take themselves to have that. It's actually a principle that Islam sort of preaches to. This way, a lot of Islamic people say that like their first instinct is to move away from a place where they're in contradiction to before they'll actually go into jihad, which means struggle. Jihad means the struggle. Like that's when you go into the struggle against someone, that's a resort. Like that's something that you try and avoid as much as possible. The Jewish people do the same. It comes from the history of the Semitic people, like and them having to be under preached. Wild Zion is the road of Ethiopia to Persia. That's a good way of putting it. I'm get messaged by the old comrade. Enlightening me on my this little hat. But but it's basically been like about their long history of diaspora because the Jewish people don't have a homeland. Zionism has no Zion in it. That's actually something that you don't just hear Jewish people chanting. Anyone ever listen to any anti-Zionist soul, reggae, hip hop, or rap? It's the exact same thing.
Fuck yeah. Oh, what was it? Also, fucking on the like like the Pat Sox fucking neutrality on like all this different stuff going on. Like they're mocking all the different movements going on in the U.S. and shit for different like civil rights. Like for instance, like the abortion thing. It's like they fail to see how like communists should be able to tie all these things together into one coherent movement. We should be able to support their rights to these things, their passion for these different rights and policies that they want implemented and stuff, and be able to connect it to something wider, to something systemic against like the actual capitalist system itself. You know,
I
they
actually,
fail to do that.
I actually don't think they're not aware of it. They just don't give a shit.
Yeah, they're not trying to do it. Like,
These people are fascists.
definitely.
Of course, calling them a fascist is an understatement. If I have to be honest
I
with you
I
guys.
don't even call them. I don't call them fascists anymore. I just call them straight up fucking Nazis. And I use it in a very, very nasty kind of way. I use it in a very nasty kind of like the way that they would talk about them in like Indiana Jones films. These people are fucking Nazi-ass
I need to
motherfuckers.
like fucking have like a download of the video on just on hand of fucking Mark Hamill going Nazi. I mean, idea for the next profile picture Sonovia that is like if you ever want to change it is to get the one with Mark Hamill pointing because I mean you don't even need to have the word Nazis written on the screen with it. People know what it's from and it's symbolic.
Fucking Haas literally earlier today, he was talking about how like the left is like fucking CIA glowy shit because it's like apparently like some of the movements are like funded by billionaires or
Hey, they
something,
call
or
my
like
lumpen prole fucking pank out it brother in Ohio a Yankee yuppie some fucking like young bourgeois male did and it's like what do you mean it? Is he a yuppie? He's fucking he's what he's what yuppies call white trash like what?
for real. No, I thought it was fucking funny and hypocritical though too, because they were like, "Oh yeah, so like this is why we're not supporting like any LGBT stuff or whatever." Like, really, fucking. So then, why the fuck did you support the fucking Karen
Oh, the whole
cosplay
it's a
then?
petty
Because
bourgeois conspiracy thing. The CPGBML pushes that. They say that trans things are petty bourgeois conspiracy.
yeah, and
Yeah,
then
is
like the
imperialism pushes it.
imperialism is like pushing woke ideology onto
Isn't it interesting that the petty
everyone. Like,
bourgeois fucking people lapping as communists are the ones trying to push that the petty bourgeoisie are trying to attack the communists, and this is what they're using to attack it. It's not us that's using the literal fascist China to attack fucking actual communist struggle. I mean, fuck me. Like, if anyone learns about what happens in the Philippines, what actually fucking goes down, who supports who, and then decides to still support China, you are a fascist. I don't give a fuck what excuses people have for these people. As soon as you learn that the fucking Filipino Nazis are being supported by China while the fucking communists are being told to get fucked and are being reported as terrorists by China, like, yeah, no, you're a fascist. I got no fucking sympathy, no empathy. Go fucking join Caleb Moppin's little fucking sex cult where you have to hand your phones in because doesn't want you
yeah,
filming Jim Carrey.
yeah.
It might get copyright strike. It's
That's when
saving you the
Caleb
trouble.
Maupin. Yeah, they left out the detail that Caleb Maupin was sitting there naked and on the couch, like hugging him, watching Jim Carrey movies. Like,
Yep,
But
I mean,
has
wow,
sex
I
with
used to
all
watch
the
Jim
women.
Carrey.
Has sex with all the women. Well, actually, well, I don't know. He might have sex with the men too, but and then he stages mock executions with people where he takes them out to the woods, makes them dig their own ditches.
No, do
You
you know
know, like a
what's not
Nazi.
unsettling with him? Like, so, like Caleb Moppin, I think he actually is one of those pray the gay away Christians because, like, it's really unfortunate because he used to be a lot more progressive in when he was in the RCP. He used to do like he used to contact people and do like fucking gay BDSM stuff.
yeah. I wonder why if that's why he got kicked out, or did he leave, or did he get kicked out of RCP? Because like
They're pretty
RCP is pretty.
homophobic.
Yeah, they're homophobic as fuck. Like even still to this day, it's kind of weird.
BDSM to them is like some like trickery by women to enslave men. Like They're trying to crush our testicles.
We don't
Like
know
the
much about.
RCP really sounds like an edgy fucking like 14-year-old trapped in a man's body, and that explains like fucking the way that what's his name fucking I always forget his name whenever I go to talk about him. The dickhead hiding in France. You know, he's not running
Pourquoi?
away from the CIA. The CIA is running away from him.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Bob Avakian.
Yeah, fucking
Slovakian.
that's it. Um, um, Bobby Avaki. He used to be sound back in the day, but he seems to have degraded like by the time of the 90s.
Yeah, I read some of his stuff in the late 70s, early 80s, and it was actually pretty good. But beyond that, like,
It's like, hey, that's pretty good. And it's like, oh, this guy turned into a cult leader. Why?
Careful, guys. Caleb Maupin will sue us all for slander.
No, he's wise. He doesn't
Well,
like Bob Avaki.
I
well,
asked
yeah,
Caleb
that is
Muffin
true.
might sue me for, the comments on CPI. What was it? The Revolutionary Camp School, whatever the fuck that was. Like, the fucking CPI teaching or music school, teaching you how to sing like old ass fucking songs and chant CPI. Like,
I mean, what's it? The fucking the CPI. I mean, like they have token trans people in their org, but like I know from fucking not only what I've been told by Jason, but I've been told by other fucking people, like that fucking video I did from the whistleblower, the CPI. That Caleb Boppin is transphobic as fuck. Like not like indirectly, like transphobic. Actually, when Jason was struggling to get correct positions on the trans issue and was making bad positions when he was forced to make an answer, that was around the time he had Moppin at his ear. Like a lot of when you lot of map this up, like that's where a lot of the barriers came in. And you know what? It was lumpen prol and proletarian trans people that contacted Jason and told him he's wrong and taught him Wagwan, and he fucking followed. He learned. He criticized his mistakes. But he's always been too nice to fucking Caleb and giving him too much credit. And I think it's because he didn't notice a lot of these things. This is white people for you. A lot of the people affected by whiteness. I'm affected by whiteness. We're all affected by whiteness. And so you don't see it until it's too late with a lot of people because people give benefit of the doubt. They don't think people are like intentionally racist or intentionally homophobic or intentionally sexist because they think that everyone's unconscious to some degree or another. It's like, no, consciousness is more like a switch rather than it is like a slow inclination. Like you are either class conscious or you're not class conscious. So
Yeah.
either you are seeing things for how they are or you're not seeing things for how they are. So they either are choosing to be sexist or they're not. Like they're not like no one's accidentally hitting these marks at the point of being a communist. Like you're not gonna be a communist and then choose to like accidentally be sexist. Like you might accidentally slip up and be sexist in certain small incidents, but you would correct yourself instantly and feel like a dickhead, or be
Yeah.
corrected and feel like a dickhead in that remark. If you choose to hallmark yourself and stay by those positions and not allow yourself to be criticized for it, you're fucking obviously latching onto those positions or choosing to be a piece of shit.
Yeah, even like oppressed nations that are within the United States, because the United States is just basically ruled by like white supremacy as well. Like even they are affected by like whiteness in a sense. For instance, like I was reading through Eldridge Cleaver's Soul on Ice, which is a very good read. I would encourage people to read it. He
Oh,
went
yeah.
in and he went in on that book about how he was ashamed of the fact that he felt like as a black man, it was basically forced on him to, or like ideologically, like it basically implanted in him by society to view the white woman as like the ideal type of like attractive woman. And so
Yeah,
he
but
had like
also
a
as well,
love-hate
like the only
relationship.
way to become accepted is truly like because African American is the end of like the African American is just another N word. Think about this. So
Yeah.
African American was just used to make a caste system in disguise, but it's also blatant for people to see at the same time. So people can lie to themselves that it's not that. but it's just a term for every one of them. But it's you're the racist archetype of an African slave if you're in the lower caste.
Yeah.
But then when you reach the white middle class standard of living, which they have to actually reach a higher, like actual like sort of like social standing to reach that standard of living because they don't get treated with the same respect. But they 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 then get to be American. So a lot of them want to seek that, but even if they don't seek that, you see with comrades that went into the halls of academia and got these big degrees, became doctorates, they got tarnished with not just whiteness, but with the ideology of the petty bourgeoisie, which is where whiteness was spawned. The feudal aristocracy come up with it as a way to stop slaves rebelling against them. I mean, everyone says America had no feudal aristocracy. Who the fuck became the fucking first bourgeoisie of America? Gonna be bourgeoisie, but like merchants were not the people who fucking first colonized America. The merchants came after the fucking colonizers of America. Fucking
Yeah.
feudal
So,
aristocrats leading voyages of fucking like lower class fucking peasants and serfs.
like another thing that was interesting in like the Soul on Ice book was that he basically got into the thing about like how a lot of black women are mistreated by basically everybody in society, including a lot of black men. Um, which really sucks because it just goes back into the thing where it's like women are put in like this state of society where they're just like by far like some of the most oppressed people like in the whole fucking country. Like,
Oh yeah, like
Yeah.
so the anthropology has found out that like sort of like where things went wrong gender wise and on well in regards to like the binary sort of way that we look at it was that when birth rates had dropped like in like these conglomeratively larger tribes, they would just start absorbing more tribes, and so this created a more distinctive class system out of the already class-based gender structure that formed. Gender was more about like, or they wouldn't even have probably called it gender, but it was like, you were a warrior or you were a mother, you were a chieftain, and being a mother didn't mean you had to be a female. It's just you were someone who looked after kids, like a gatherer, etc. And so like the 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 what ended up happening was that like they would massacre the men in a tribe, and then they would try and integrate the women into their tribe, and then when the women wouldn't obviously rebel because obviously they're not going to want to be integrated into a tribe that just genocided their fucking people, they enslaved them, and that was the beginning of class, like actual like class society. Sorry, because before there was the class structure emerging, because class existed before class society, but that was the creation of the class system, like where it was an actual formalized system of oppression to keep a continuation of society. That's the class system, where society necessitates the existence of class.
yeah, absolutely. And
I
see,
I
here's
can't
the thing
believe.
too. It's like they fucking don't see how all of these things are connected like this back to class. Like they always thought how they literally wear it on their sleeve as like a fucking thing of pride where they call themselves like class reductionists. It's like, well, first of all, like in the sense that it depends on what the fuck they're saying. Like all these things affect class and they're all part of the class system. So if
I
that's what
mean,
you
this
mean, then
is
sure,
what
but that's not what
disabled
they mean.
people, I can speak from experience on this. Disabled people have really good relationships with colonized people. Obviously, not just because
Yeah.
there's like colonized people who are disabled, because I mean, that's the easy, obvious card in that, but like it's that common experience of eugenics, but they're the people who give you the most respect of
Yeah.
anyone. They're the people who know, they know the way that the ideology of the system is still eugenic to this day. They've experienced it. Their families have experienced it. They have the history behind them. You can't be a black man that descended from slaves in Europe or America and not know that you descended from fucking slaves. Like that's you know how the fucking fuck you got there. You were fucking taken. Family were taken, and that goes all the way down. People cannot turn around and say that was years ago because it don't matter. It's still part of their fucking struggle. They they are a separate nation because of that struggle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I love it how we went from Mao saying women uphold half the sky to fucking Haas saying he's an open misogynist and hates women. Um, it's just like this is what passes as a communist. I mean, an ML, a communist, whatever the fuck, in 2022.
Okay, so Mao was a kinky bitch. That's my response.
It's also pretty gross, especially in this like patriarchal society that like literally like they try to force the thing to onto women that like the most important thing about them and to them is the way they look, and he'll like always try to make fun of women's looks or like try to like call like women like ugly and all this shit. It's like, dude.
The end of the day, like we are all creatures of nature, and all things natural is beautiful. Like that's the earth we live upon, and trust me, the beauty of nature will not stand for the ugly nature that humanity is treating the earth, and the earth will outlive us. We will die if we don't sort our earth out. The world will outlive us. It'll go through another phase. It'll shift about. Things will resettle. A new life will start again eventually. Maybe.
Yeah.
The Earth itself ain't gonna fucking just turn into dust,
It
even if
brought
we nuked it.
Here's another thing too. Is like a lot of the fucking like the incel, like because a lot of how this crowd are like fucking incel, like black pill weirdo idiots, like degenerate virgins, and like a lot of them will like try to like fucking like
January virgins.
like they'll fucking like try to complain about like women doing this and that and all this shit, like, oh, women can improve their looks by wearing makeup or some shit like that. It's like, well, first of all, like you guys are the ones enforcing this like society where you're basically like uh, indoctrinating them to think like the fucking their looks are the most important thing to them, and a lot of these weirdo incel dudes that are like weirdly in favor of the Roe versus Wade fucking decision. It's like,
And the
dude,
don't say the
first of
gay
all, like,
though.
yeah, it's like first of all, like you guys you guys are already are bitching about like how like these the women aren't sleeping with your ass, and like you think they're gonna sleep with you now that there's even a bigger chance that they'll be
Wait,
forced to have your fucking baby.
no.
Like,
Hard is the biggest tragedy of the toxic masculinity of the petty bourgeoisie. I don't know if he knows this, but like he's not a fucking ugly looking geezer. Like I've even heard comrades of fucking of the femoid character say to this. Do you know what it is that puts them off with him? He's a rapey seeming geezer. He's very insecure with his masculinity. He's really, really fucking aggressive. And he speaks to people like they're shit. That's why they don't fucking like him. Like maybe if he had some respect for himself and other people, he'd actually have a fucking woman. Like that's literally the problem with him. Like just fucking grow up and be a fucking man about it. Like it's not fucking that hard.
he
Like,
also
you know,
dresses like it's like 2005, and he wears like shorts that are like as long as pants,
tank tops.
and tank tops and shit. Like,
He's so
and he
fucking
wears like
insecure.
DC
He's so
shoes.
fucking yeah. He's so insecure. He's such a little fucking like
Fucking mum
fucking
sleeves
piece
black
of shit.
shirts revised, they
He,
cut the sleeves.
He's
I
he's very ugly on the inside.
I think we've pretty much said everything we needed to say about the Roe v. Wade thing. So I'm getting tired.
No, actually, sorry. I just want to finish up because I want to talk
Well,
about the solution, like because there was like
well,
somebody. Oh, but
well,
yeah,
I was gonna say I'm tired. So like I'm gonna end this stream in like around 15 to 20 minutes. So if you guys have anything you want to like finish, I would do it.
Yeah.
I actually do because I haven't talked too much because of this stupid fucking job. Um,
I'll
but
let you talk because I don't know how much time you have.
Yeah.
yeah, until a customer shows up. But what I was gonna say is the solution to this is not to push for reformism. Like, um, here, I got an 11-point plan for what we can do about Roe v. Wade. And it's basically one, dismantle the police, two, dismantle the military, three, end imperialism, four, disarm the bourgeoisie, 5. Give guns to the lumpen proletariat
I
and
mean,
lower
behead
proletariat.
the bourgeoisie.
Absolutely, and take guns away from the
Yes.
petty bourgeoisie. Like that's what I would say.
Disarm and
I mean,
then
like
behead.
Mao knew what needed to be done with people of big character in class. You know that it's the short drop for them. They
Yeah.
don't even get the long drop. Like fuck that. Like bourgeoisie of billionaire status, short drop.
Yeah, like
Yep.
here's the thing too. It's like the one I guess good thing about all this, like the one positive outlook that we can see, is that people have pretty a lot of people have lost complete hope in like, the system, even more so. Like it's already been clarified to them. Like people already don't really have any type of hope in the system in the first place. But in general, like people are realizing, like we're never gonna take over the fucking Democratic Party. Like that's a fucking joke. Like that shit has failed. It's been tried and failed. Like the only thing left to do is like actually to take action at this point. So and I actually quite enjoy the seeing a lot of people getting more radicalized and saying like the only way we're ever going to get anything done is if we actually fucking put pressure on these people like in streets. And I think it's hilarious and funny to see clear and obvious mask off fascists like Haas
I mean, it has to
like
go
talk
even
about
further,
how
doesn't
like
it, as well? Because like, what's
yeah
it? Last time, what they did, they crushed the last time it got active in the streets. That's why they're all opposed to the Panthers. Like, you're
yeah
really, really right on it. More than I think people will want to give it credit because they always want to obscure the fact that white people are the reason why the black struggle failed during the 70s.
Yeah, and like Haas is coping and seething by basically like saying like, oh, all these calls for violence are super glowy and like they're ultra left violent like terrorists. It's just like, dude, these are like basic
Last
liberals.
inflammatory.
And, like a lot of these people advocating for this type of stuff. First of all, this type of stuff they're advocating for is not even violent. Like they're advocating for like like gathering outside the fucking justices' houses and shit. So they're not talking about storming the fucking houses. Like they call that terrorist shit. Like this is basic liberal shit. Like we could actually like fucking radicalize these people even more. Like
The thing
No,
about these first worldists, they're not ready for a revolution. They never will be.
yeah, like
I mean, their idea of
uh,
revolution is go out and vote, send a letter to your congressman. Such fucking.
It's like this is why like like being part of an org if you can is essential to do what you can because things are gonna get worse before they get better. Because Roe v. Wade is like it's not the beginning because let's be honest, there was other things before Roe v. Wade,
yeah,
but things are just getting started. Like they're gonna feel more emboldened. Like they'll go after every signal right, or I should say privileges, because that's what they are, not rights. Privileges that we have. Like
We got to think about this as well. This is not just simple, like tactful use of the bourgeoisie being concise to control the system. No, this is a reaction of the petty bourgeoisie freaking out in the system and being able to do their own ambitions in very wantonly different ways because there's a lot of different factions to these different classes, but they're starting to cohesify. They're starting to find out the ground they want to base themselves because neo neo feudalism is the core character of petty bourgeois class consciousness. You know, the squabbles between them is how they're going to lay that down, and this reaction comes from the Christian fascist side of the neo feudal argument. 'Cause, I mean, it's really really complicated. The one thing you got to remember to break it up into is that like fascism is one branch of neo feudalism, and then fascism has like so many different branches as well, and they all squabble with each other. And it'd be the same for petty bourgeois socialism and all that as well. All the different branches of that, Khrushchevites and fucking Kropotniks, that they're all fucking at it with each other.
Yep. And the one thing these fascists tend to do is try to distance themselves from other fascists and be like, no, 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 We're the different ones. I mean, the Nazis did that when they were running against other right wing parties in Germany. They always tried to distance themselves. I mean, sometimes they work
Well,
with
the
other
Nazis
parties,
wanted to
but they,
work with them, and the Nazis said no.
yeah. But I was talking about like other parties as well, like the fucking there was like a proto fascist, not even proto, but just straight up like the German national, the the DVNP or whatever the fuck it was called. It's basically a
Well,
different
also
version of an
the Black Sword or Black Knights faction or whatever the fuck it was, that was Strasser's brothers faction.
black, the Black Front.
That the Black Front, that's it. That was made up of a mass majority of the national syndicalists of the that were in the SDP, um, and even Social Democrats from the SDP. But the SDP had like a weird split going on with it during that time, where so basically, when you're going to look at Germany in this era, you've got to understand that like neoliberalism was like the other opposition to this. You had communism, fascism, and neoliberalism. Neoliberalism was only liked by the bourgeoisie. That's why they had to be convinced to like Hitler's quote socialism end quote by Spengler and people like that, because actually it was literally Spengler that got him a fucking seat with the bourgeoisie. Like I'm not even like just saying Spengler is an example of the type of people. Like he's the guy, but other folk were involved too. But Spengler is actually he's kind of ignored too much. But
Yeah.
that creation, that installation, that thing, they had to be convinced because they were going for neoliberalism. No one else wanted neoliberalism. Everyone else was fighting between communism, which is predominantly supported by the working class, and then you've got fascism, which is predominantly supported by the petty bourgeoisie. Fascism didn't get its working class presence until like it already fucking like had been like attempting coups and fighting stuff. Like the people who formed the Freikorps were not workers. They didn't have the fucking money to buy these fucking fancy arms to fight people with. Like there were people fighting with bolt action rifles with fucking clips when bolt action rifles with clips are still a new thing. Do you think fucking someone working in the fucking steel mill has that? Oh, they probably have a pistol.
Yeah, like there was also the neo-socialist tendency in like France and Belgium in particular, who also like fucking admired Italian fascism and Nazism. So
I mean, so here's the thing that I wanted to mention about Caleb Maupin on this. So like Caleb Maupin, like he preaches Roman republicanism. Like he does what Mussolini does. Like he like the whole like Kaiser would have done the empire better bullshit. Like the tragedy of Julius Caesar. The guy who has a long history of being an oppressive dickhead, but like well, just fucking ignore that. But ignore the genocide of the Celts in northern Italy. But so Rome, they classified women as broken men, like, and so like there's the whole one gender idea. There's one gender, and women are just like men but broken. And so like if you were a bottom, as one might put it in today's language, in a man on man bit of buggery, you were seen as now a de facto woman, and this sort of like Rome's response to then like the mass amount of trans women that were like against the fucking empire. They're like they then responded with transphobia on top of the already homophobia that created the contradiction for them to then be transphobic towards people. Um, like it's sort of like you know you push these people into accepting something that was actually a common norm to society before Rome, because Rome already oppressed the idea of like people being fluid with gender like for like ages, and then they created the re-rise of something that they oppressed. Empires always do this. They destroy so much of society, and then the re-rise of like old cultural norms, like gender not being like like a concrete sort of ideal of things, where like it's some of that's based off your sex. It was some of that was based off of um societal sort of class engagement. The class structure of late stage communal society.
Yeah.
Well, since I'm getting really tired, so I'd like to maybe give my final thoughts on this. What have we learned um continuously throughout history and the present? That anytime you see a huge reactionary movement, it's always by the petty bourgeoisie. I think that the overturning of Roe v. Wade should be a wake up call to anyone that still has this naive notion that we can work with the petty bourgeoisie. We cannot. We may be able to work with some sections of them who are willing to commit class suicide, but they should never have any power in any movement
But I
before
just
and after the revolution.
I do have to finish my point though. So, what people like mopping who think about the Romans like that, they blame trans people and gay people for the end of the Roman Empire. That is
That
actually a good common conclusion.
is complete insanity.
Yep.
Well, no, it's
When
actually like so. Here's the interesting thing: they did actually play a key part in the struggle. Like I wouldn't take it away from them. I think it's base gay people and trans people of the Roman Empire. Like,
I mean, yeah, but he's looking at it like a negative thing, like, oh, the Roman Empire collapsed. Oh, he was such a
Does
progressive
anyone
force.
know why, like Normans who used to have a Germanic language, Frankish people who used to have a Germanic language, and for a long time until like the 13 or 1400s, and actually no, it's probably a little earlier than that. The English in the South were trying to get rid of their Germanic language. Why people were doing that? Because they were self-hating Germans. They were like, "Oh, the Germans ended the Romans. Where the Celts ended the Romans? Where we should fucking get rid of that and be Latin." Fucking cut.
I gotta get going right now to go.
so, anyway, nice having you on, Flashy. Looking forward to working with you again.
Oh yeah, definitely. Peace.
All right. Well, looks like we're the hated trio that certain
The fucking
people like to
traitor of
watch.
tyranny.
Anyway, we do not lose hope, people. Yeah, things will get worse before they get better, but we shouldn't be despairing over the repealing of Roe v. Wade. This should be a wake up call. And to reiterate my point earlier, the petty bourgeoisie are the biggest threat to any socialist movement, and they're the biggest threat to whatever, let's just call them, privileges you still possess. The petty bourgeoisie are going after them as well. Like, they're not going to stop until they turn back the clock on everything. And I mean everything. They'll go after Social Security benefits at some point in the near future. Just watch. They'll use the Supreme Court for anything that they don't like. Buckle up, because things are only going to get worse from here.
All support needs to really be focused on the way that this is going to affect the lumpen proletariat. Like, there are already laws that made abortion so expensive that lumpen proles cannot afford it. It ties them down. It destroys their fucking livelihood as soon as they get fucking pregnant because they can't afford the shit. So, like, this is all goes into the struggle of the lumpen proletariat more than anything, in my opinion. Like, the colonized, uh, and this is fucked, people.
Yeah, and for people like me and a Dark Synovia who live in states where abortion is legal. I mean, I hope it's still going to be legal in my state, but who knows how this governor race is going to turn out. But anyway, it's still yeah, it's fucking we got a QAnon or who's trying to run for governor here, so He wants to make all abortion illegal, including rape, incest, life of the mother. So it's like,
The QAnon governor.
yeah,
Well,
he's a Trump motherfucking, piece of shit.
You could say he's a QAnoner.
and let's not get started on Gavin Newsom. That guy's a
Yeah.
fucking real piece of
Oh
work.
god, Gavin Newsom. Hey, fucking creepy little sex pest.
But we need to start helping these women from these other states. We need to rebuild the underground railroad, literally to funnel them out of these states.
Trans people as well, like
Trans
fucking
people,
get them
yeah,
out
yeah.
of fucking Texas,
Well, that's the next
Alabama.
thing that's coming. Yeah. Well, that's the next thing that they're going to probably rule on.
Well, it's already been
So,
happening. Trans people are already losing their shit. Like that's like Texas has been fucking going hard at trans people.
I meant the Supreme Court. That's probably the next thing they're going to rule on is trans people don't have rights to live or something like that.
This is what
No,
the Supreme Court's doing is they're not ruling in decision. They're basically like, well, we'll just let people do what they want. Like they're saying we shouldn't care. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to take as much hands off as possible. This is what America does a
Oh,
lot. Like when they did the Red Summer massacres, like the main government just gave credence to the local government to blag that all the black people that were massacred were fucking all Bolshevik
communist.
fucking agents. Just all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of when Keaton Manspread said, well, this ruling returns it back to the states and the democratic process. And it's like, motherfucker, we don't have any democracy at the state or local level here, you fucking fascist piece of shit. Like, he seriously thinks this bourgeois institution of state and local government is somehow democracy.
yeah, and for those people who say, "Oh, this decision has made me not look at the Supreme Court as a legitimate institution," I don't know where the fuck you have been, but they've made decisions that are as bad as this time and time again throughout the institution's entire history.
Are
Yeah,
you
just
saying America's an empire? I
Like,
thought it was a republic. I thought it was democracy.
like okay, look it up, people. The Supreme Court was attempting when Social Security was first established to try to strike down Social Security because it was unconstitutional.
We don't even need to go back to that. Dred v. Scott. They literally
Yeah.
ruled a slave. I mean, a person who was a slave who went to another state. They ruled that he wasn't a citizen and did not have a right to be free.
Where's
That he
your
wasn't even a
crown,
human.
King Washington?
I'm just saying that the Supreme Court of fascists have always been working for the interests of the bourgeoisie and the petty bourgeoisie.
The British High Court, like it's just like America. We're gonna rebel against the British, but we should base our government off the British and the French government. You know, the two governments that basically got the same structure and the same basis. 'Cause they used to both be a part of the same Norman monarchy. Complex history that people seem to avoid.
I think we should end it here because if we continue, if we talk
I
about
don't know. I
that,
could go on like a 2-hour discussion about the Norman history.
I know because I am tired. Anyway,
Starting in 10.
to end this stream, fuck the Supreme Court and fuck the people that support their decision.
Yeah, you know, all our solidarity, love, and respect to the fucking lumpen proletarian brothers and sisters that are fucking having to fucking deal with this situation, the way that it affects everyone economically speaking. It destroys families.
Yes, it
Yep.
does. All power to the
Death.
people, deaf to this fascist state.
Yep. Death to
Absolutely.
America. KKKK.
Agreed. Deaf to America.
Yeah, death to America.